The following is a presentation of the Force Center podcast feed.
From the center of the galaxy, this is the Force Center podcast feed, and this particular episode is the Mandalorian Report.
Boom. I forget if I do sounds for this show or is it just bad batch? Boom, boom, boom. This is the way. There we go.
You definitely do sounds for both shows, and that was great. That was yet another great sort of almost a layer for a dance track with a little bit of dialogue dropped in. It reminds me of like there's a weird mix of the James Bond theme from 1997 where it's like a little bit more electronic dancing, techno-y, and then every once in a while what is very clearly an audio clip from James Bond goes, Bond, James Bond. And the way you said "This is the way," it was like it's a Din and Bo-Katan's dance version.
There we go. This is the way. This is the way.
Beat, drop. This is the way.
Add in Bo-Katan's "This is the way." Yeah, there you go.
This is the way. Add in Grogu perhaps trying to gurgle. This is the way.
We're getting closer to that.
But then the song suddenly changes to an entirely different but equally fascinating mood as we get into the lush, ambivalent strings of the indie drama of Dr. Pershing. This one was a great surprise. We shouldn't even be surprised anymore because surprises are to be expected in the Mandoverse. We are excited to dive into it. Before we do, we want to do a quick plug. We know this is the episode where we get a few more ears, a few more eyes watching the waveforms dance on YouTube. So we do want to let you know that we are doing a big push for our Patreon. We have looked at our history as a podcast, as a YouTube channel, and realized Patreon is really where we get the most consistent support to keep us going. So we are trying to build that up. We've got a couple exciting things coming. We are doing an Indiana Jones podcast called Indiana Jones in the Perilous Podcasts. That is going to be available first on Patreon. Then once Dial of Destiny comes out in the summer, we'll make those episodes available publicly. But if you want to jump into the Indiana Jones journey now, you can join us in our first episode, which we recorded, and it's long, and I enjoyed the hell out of it. That is going to be up on our Patreon on Monday, March 20th. So if you want to check that out and see if it's for you, you can go to patreon.com/Force Center and check out all the rewards and goals and all those things. And if it's not for you, well, that is totally fine and understandable. That is your way. It's amazing how quickly the cool Mandalorian phrase, "This is the way," can turn into a Burger King commercial if you change just a few words.
I want it to my way, both flame grilled and dark savory.
Flame grilled. This is the way. All right. We have got through the ramble at the intro. We're going to go into this really fascinating episode, Chapter 19, the third episode of Season 3, but overall Chapter 19, entitled The Convert. Written by Noah Clure and Jon Favreau, directed by Lee Isaac Chung. This is exciting because there are some newer names, kind of. Noah Clure has been a writing partner, assistant, I would say Padawan, it seems, of Jon Favreau, and have been in the credits a lot. Did a lot of work on Book of Boba Fett, I believe. And, hey, Lee Isaac Chung, it might be a new name to Star Wars, but, pretty impressive resume there. His film Minari was nominated for multiple Academy Awards, and here he is working in Star Wars. Do you have any reaction to those credits, Ken?
I love, like we always say, I love when an established name meets a bigger audience that maybe is not familiar. That's sometimes how this works, right? You got a small YouTube channel, then you go to appear in a big one, and everyone goes, "Who is this person?" It's been around for 25 years. So I love that, and yeah, Noah Clure, from the writer's assistant, taking notes in a room to co-producing, associate producing, writing episodes. That's how you do it.
Yeah, on a good path there. So this episode, we always like to look at the length, and this is fascinating because this episode is about 53 minutes of actual storytelling. This is technically the longest episode of The Mandalorian, just beating out Chapter 9, The Marshal. This was a long, thematically complex, dense with intriguing canon mentions and questions. This was a big, long episode of The Mandalorian. So what was your viewing experience? What prep did you do? When and how did you watch it? All that.
Midnight showing for me, and the anticipation was building. I was really excited coming off the big episode last week and the cliffhanger, right? We pretty much figured we are going to pick up right where we left off. So I was getting excited, busy as always, but, had about 15 minutes to sit down and wait. Saw Phil Shostak tweet out, basically, it's a doozy. And I thought, oh, here we go. And I don't think that ended up being wrong. It was just maybe a different kind of doozy. Then when I sat down, popped up again a little early for those who know, about 11:50 my time, it popped up. So it was 58 minutes, including credits. And I went, yes, this is going to be a doozy. Then about halfway through the episode, I went 58 minutes. Wow. Okay. We're still going. Which is not negative, just a different vibe. So that was my prep. No drink, no photos, no pictures. You do such a great job with that. I had 2 chihuahuas and a glass of water, and I was ready to go.
Well, that sounds like a lovely viewing experience. 2 chihuahuas in a glass of water. A different kind of doozy feels like that should be the name of an episode of the Clone Wars. Maybe around season 4. A different kind of Mibra Gascon and a different kind of doozy. I mean that with love towards old Mibra and the Clone Wars. This was a really different experience for me, and I want to be honest in case it sort of impacts my vibe in any way. So my wife needed to head to be with her parents for a little while. So I absolutely did need to take her to the airport. But if you're not from the Los Angeles area, even in the middle of the night, if you live in Hollywood, it's about an hour drive. And in the rain, I basically drove through Blade Runner twice. It takes about 2 hours. So I had the great Mandalorian midnight experience that I love. I wanted to stay up. I poured myself 1 whiskey. I took my photo with action figures and drinks like I always do, and I just got a couple new Din Djarins this week. So I was like, I'm gonna put a bunch of Din Djarins up, and I had like 3 Din Djarins, which then was really funny in the episode. I'm like, I think I had more Din Djarin on my coffee table than this episode, which, I'm not criticizing. I think that this is the way of the Mandoverse, but it amused me. So then I wrote up like about half my notes like I always do. Then I took my wife to the airport, had fun driving slowly and carefully, but pretending I was being chased by TIE interceptors. Got home, finished my notes. And then by the time I went to bed, I had been up for 24 hours straight. Then took a 3-hour nap. And now it's time to talk The Mandalorian. So it's a great experience. But in some ways, it almost like it almost enhanced the experience. Like, you can go to those cinema experiences where the chair shakes you and blasts you with mist. I feel like emotionally, I have gone through the visceral experience of this episode.
Yeah. It was a ride.
It was a ride. Well, let's get into that then, because I'm so curious to hear what your thoughts are. I've already seen a couple of people, be challenged by the similar thing that happened in Book of Boba Fett, where the show pivoted to spending more time with a different character. And I've seen some people who are over the moon about it, love it. So there is the discussion to be had about the actual content, but then also like how you adjust to the left turn and do those things work together for you, all that stuff. So what was your overall reaction? Love it? Like it? Did you struggle with the doozy?
No. Yes, here, I'll start here. You cannot say that I disliked the episode. That would be false to claim that about me, or for me to claim that about myself. I really liked it. I really liked what I saw. I really liked what it was making me feel. I'll say right now, when we dive into themes, I don't have as many specific thoughts on themes as maybe I try to do or try to keep with the show. There's a lot of questions I have and a lot of just gray area, not in terms of characters, but just like where I'm at, where I'm going, and what is this episode trying to say? And I actually really love that. I also love that we're in this this season and this 3rd episode reminds us that, oh yeah, if you thought this entire episode was going to, or entire season was going to be Mando going to the living waters to return to being a Mandalorian, or he's got to go get IG-11 parts for 3 weeks, all that stuff that maybe the previous years taught you about the show, or made you think that. We're in uncharted territory, and I absolutely love that. I have more what is going to happen next questions, and I normally don't have that. Normally, I'm like, I don't know. People ask me, what do you think is going to happen on the show this week? I don't know. I'll watch at midnight next week, and I'll tell you what's on the show. I don't ever get lost in what's coming next. I am now wonderfully lost in it. That's a good feeling, and so I like that. We're going to talk about the details, but spending time with Coruscant was a dream. I love that. Love the way it looks. Some of the best looking stuff in the show so far. The way I'm trying to describe it before I pass the ball back to you here, we love talking music and referencing that. I started my career as a rock DJ. This episode was like when you put on one of my favorite bands, Oasis, Live Forever, and then the next song is from Radiohead's OK Computer. They're both 90s Brit rock. They're both very good at what they do. Sometimes they don't pair together well in a song set on a radio station, and you risk that change of pace, that change of tone. You risk losing some folks, and then you throw in, maybe a song 2 from Blur at the end, and it's like, I understand, and it kind of the tonal shift. Even once you kind of pick up on what's going on, about 5 minutes, and you go, oh, I think this is a Dr. Pershing, Elliot Kane episode. Great, you could still go, but man, I'm still tapping my toe to Live Forever. And I want to go back to singing that. And I totally get that. And I think I'm living in that too, even a couple viewings in. We're going to discuss what's there. And I think that's okay. And I love that good old Johnny Favs has done this. He's done this his whole career, better or worse. Maybe sometimes you think it's worse. Sometimes you think it's better. He's an artist who knows what he wants to do. And the scope of the show expanding is something I enjoyed.
Yeah, I really like your analogy. I tapped out of some of 90s music as I became obsessed with Frank Sinatra and Sammy Davis Jr., but I think I understand all the references. Now I could compare it to a couple different Cake songs, right? I mean, I know Cake. So anyway, I really agree with you on a lot of it. I really, really liked the episode. I think we'll talk in more details about the big ideas, because I did have a lot of thematic thoughts. I think that's what spoke to me the most. This episode seemed to be about the dark side of change and the difficulty of change. After a couple of episodes where there was a little bit more forward movement and we were spending time with people who really wanted to change and were pushing for change, this was like the difficulty of change. I also thought it was really interesting that the Mandoverse, it felt like by spending this time not just with Dr. Pershing, but spending this time on Coruscant and spending this time really digging into and questioning the New Republic of it. What is it? What are its successes? What are its failures? And kind of just throwing a lot out there. And I don't think necessarily, in my opinion, making concrete statements of like, I don't think this one episode alone is like, this is how the New Republic failed. This is why they didn't respond to the threat of the First Order better. Like, it's just staking the claim, in my opinion. The Mandoverse is staking the claim to the story of this era, this time period. That was one of the most exciting things to me about it. We'll talk about canon and connections and analysis of government, but in terms of the Star Wars of it, it's exploded out from Din's this one lonely Mandalorian. We kind of knew it was exploding out into, well, now he's got this responsibility maybe to be a leader of all of Mandalore. Can they return physically to Mandalore? But spending this much time in this world, this was about getting to know Dr. Pershing, but this was also kind of Dr. Pershing as our tour guide into these perspectives that we've heard a little bit from Grief, we've heard a little bit from Mayfeld, we've heard a little bit from Carson Teva, and now we're diving in and saying this is a part of what this show or these shows in the Mandoverse are about, is examining the totality of this era. Yeah.
Staking a claim on that is a beautiful way to describe it. There was one little brief little moment where Pershing makes it's different than the Outer Rim. And it's like, that's why it maybe feels so different. But I thought it was valuable to go and revisit some of the show's themes in the center of the galaxy, where a lot of people don't feel may be affected by it, which is raises some questions. And I really agree with you there. It's poking at times, it seems, at the New Republic, but I don't think it's coming down on one side or the other or something like that yet. We'll see where the show goes. But I have some questions about what it was trying to say about the New Republic.
Me too. So I look forward to digging deep into those. In terms of just overall reaction, one of the things that I really liked and resonated with me is I did feel like Pershing and Bo-Katan's stories work together and we're talking to one another. And I really like that thematically. But to your great rock song DJ analogy, I did feel like a little bit of the push-pull. It's not that, I haven't really been, I really wasn't that challenged by the Book of Boba Fett personally.
Same.
By pivoting to Din and pivoting to Grogu. I missed when I sat down. It's like, I can't wait to spend some time with Boba Fett and Fennec Shand. And like, oh, okay. But I got to spend some time here.
Yeah.
This was a little bit different for me because it started exactly off the cliffhanger with the mythosaur getting into the mystery of Bo-Katan's intentions, and then a gauntlet fighter in an N1 fight TIE interceptors in one of the most just thrilling and awesome fighter battles we've seen in a long time, and it just got my blood pumping for epic Star Wars action thriller. The characters we know, he's taking her to the covert, right? And like, it's gonna be Bo-Katan, not face to face, helmet to helmet with the armor. Here we go. And then like you're saying, and then suddenly like, but let's bring it down for a moment into an intense, politically tinged indie drama with a character you really don't know at all. He's been around, but technically you know nothing about him. Let's find out who he is. I'm sorry, what's that?
It's a danger. Coming up next, Karma Police from Radiohead. Sorry, you're still singing along to live forever. You got something different.
Yep, exactly. And I'm kind of poking fun at it, but it is a dramatic tonal shift. And it all did work together. And in a way, I don't think this was necessarily the intention, but in a way, it kind of worked to make me feel what Pershing did. I didn't feel a strong emotional connection to Pershing because he hasn't been the focus.
Yeah.
We've seen little hints of who he might be, he really seemed like he did not want to hurt Grogu. He wanted to get what he needed to out of Grogu, right?
Correct.
All these things. We've seen little flashes of who he might be, but I'm not super invested in him because I don't know him yet. So going from this thrilling Mandalorian story of this is exactly what we've been waiting for, the mythosaur and the conflict of beliefs, in going to Pershing's quieter world kind of made me feel what Pershing did, which was anxious, a little trapped, eager to get back into the life in the world that I knew and the larger galaxy, which sounds like I'm making a joke at the show's expense, but in a way it kind of worked because it did make me feel what Pershing felt.
Yeah. No, I think that was effective. There's a lot of tension in every scene for me in his run of story. A lot of tension that I think just continued to build. And it's not just about, hey, what's going to happen around the corner? Just what is he feeling? How is he being treated? Who's telling the truth? Like that we'll get into the details, but when he first meets all the folks there at the amnesty break room, the picnic table, I was like, I don't believe any of them, but I wait, maybe there's a lot of inherent tension because he's unsettled.
Yeah, no, absolutely, it's extremely effective, and then extremely engaging because it is telling this. It's going bigger and digging deeper at the same time with the New Republic and this era, and it was amazing to see the lore come together in meaningful ways, right? There's some things that are just like, that's a fun reference, right? And that's fun when there is a fun reference. But these were essential and important connections to the story that Bad Batch is telling about a different era. There's some serious poetry, it rhymes, of how two different governments are restarting after a war. Obviously, huge connections to Andor, feeling a little bit more of that lived-in, day-to-day life on Coruscant. If people have been reading books, everything from Bloodline to Alphabet Squadron to Aftermath, there's just so much that has been world building in the story of this era and in the story of the New Republic that we get to see on screen. That really made it all feel, just makes the galaxy feel cohesive and poetic. The struggles rhyme. So I really love that stuff.
I think that was spiritually connected to Alphabet Squadron in a pretty strong way. Maybe not super intentional. I don't know. I'm not going to assume Johnny Favs has read Alphabet Squadron, but Noah Clore might have. Like, it's just a lot, it just, the vibe was there. And I love that, actually.
There was a real sense of, we know what has already been discussed about this era, and we are exploring that even further, right?
Yes.
I think that, and that's what's important. It's not like, on what exact star date was Ben Solo born. It's not that sort of pedantic canon. It's what is the New Republic trying to do? Are they succeeding? What is it like to be an Imperial? That's so much Alphabet Squadron stuff there,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
So let's get into some of the details then, unless you have any other overall thoughts.
No, let's dive in. Let's figure this out.
All right. So we're going to talk the big themes of this episode, the ideas that are at stake. Ken, I want to start here. Talked about it a little bit, that I think the whole show of The Mandalorian has been about change, right? The first episode, he has this massive change by encountering Grogu and driven out of his comfort zone, makes connections to new people, all those things. But this season in particular has also set up a big theme of change. Going back to the previous seasons, Queel's lessons about people can change, droids can change, seeing all of Din's growth, Grief's ongoing efforts on Navarro, but all that's been really highlighted this season. I feel like last episode in particular, The Minds of Mandalore, we talked a lot about being all about rebirth in a beautiful and inspiring way of, we can start again. We can re-examine old beliefs and find new meaning in them. So I felt like there's almost been like a little bit of this great energy of change. Some people are going to try to drag us back, like the pirates on Navarro, but Grief's there to fight them. And, Din's moving forward with some new ideas, as well as maybe being dragged back a little bit. And I've really felt like if change is the main idea of the season, this episode examines the dark, the murky, the difficult parts of change, and some characters who maybe fail at change. I think that was the biggest thing to me that made me feel like these stories of Pershing and Bo-Katan are connected. I thought about it as a theme of, can you escape your own past?
Right.
And I think Pershing and Bo-Katan both are kind of tempted back into their own questionable past. Pershing can't let go of his research. His ego, his identity, his sense of purpose are wrapped up in it. He misses the life that he knew, everything from the bland rations, to almost a sense that even though he made that joke at the expense of the Outer Rim, it's more like he feels like somebody who's been living rough for a long time. So when he's allowed to live in a slightly cleaner, safer place, it feels wrong to him. There's so much that's pulling him back to what he knew. He can't enjoy the safety, the amenities, the culture. Of course, it should be great, but it's just alienating to him,
Yeah.
So he's really getting drawn back into his past. And then I think with Bo-Katan, it's a little bit of a lighter touch and a little bit more complicated, but it's this moment of rebirth, I think, at the end of The Minds of Mandalore, that the mythosaur is real. These are not stories for children. My belief that Mandalore could be great again could be I didn't mean to phrase it that way. That Mandalore could be powerful again, and there is meaning in our beliefs is powerful. But then we got this real mystery of kind of what's going on with her. How is she responding to that discovery? What does she want out of the mythosaur? The fact that her home is destroyed sets her up to be tempted by anger, tempted by vengeance, tempted by a lust for power via the mythosaur. Is she at the very end of the episode staring at that symbol, that the wall statue sculpture of the mythosaur, going, but I know where the real one is. I'll take the covert. I'll take you, Armorer. I'll take Mandalore. I'll make the Empire pay. All of that, I think, is intriguing and works really well in the show because it's talking about old ways. I think it's even more powerful if you're familiar with her past as a member of Death Watch.
Mhm.
Children of the Watch are clearly connected to the Death Watch. So basically what we're watching is everybody welcoming her to a community, patting her on the back, but at the same time, what we know is she just rejoined a version of the cult that she was a part of that made horrible choices and helped get her own sister killed.
Yeah.
So they're both, it's the story of two people, I think, kind of moving back potentially into their past. What do you think about that way of viewing the way their stories are connected?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great way to look at it. The idea of choice and second chances are at the heart of this episode. But the big question is, can you change your heart, and maybe why, and what are you getting out of it? And the stuff I think I love more than anything, the Pershing stuff is solid and all the way through. I love that Bo-Katan. We don't see her face. We don't see Katie's face right now. We just see what we think almost what we want.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like what I exactly what we talked about last week. These stories might be true. There's power in them. There's purpose in them. And what's my place in that? Now that I know this, is she holding on to that power for herself? Did you see anything? You didn't. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I did. What am I going to do with that? What do I want? And Slappy Bat Time over here is just happy he's a Mandalorian again. He doesn't want any of this. Okay, cool. I'll invite him for dinner. I know he won't do that because his helmet doesn't come off. And then at that end, it's like, yeah, everyone's, this is my questions coming. I'm like, am I thinking, is she like, these gullible fools? I got them, and I'm going to do it. I'm going to take everything you said. Take the dark saber. I am the power. Is she seeing almost a sword in the lake here? The lady in the lake's giving her a sword of I saw that. That's my purpose. I can reclaim what was mine. I can go back to my past, like you said, and then you ask the question of can you change your heart? Can you do it with a different heart? Why are you doing it? You have her on that shelf. I love it. I love the choice to not see her face because it's just so blank. But on the other side, you spend all the episode staring at Pershing's face, and you read his emotions and this question that comes up a lot of helping the New Republic, right? Helping the New Republic any way I can. Don't you want to help? Don't you want to help? And I believed him, but the ties to the past and the slow trust game that Caden plays with him, right? Mm-hmm. Everything she does and says, if you go back and watch the episode from the time they start interacting, is this pulling him slowly forward, right? Everything is his trust. I call this the Ballad of Imperial Travel Biscuits. And throwing the past, but wasn't this good? No, you're just trying to help. You're just trying to help. So both these characters are kind of in the same spot, even though they're approaching it the same way. For me, of wanting to move forward, that idea seems right, but they can't quite shake what's there before. They can't quite shake what's in their heart.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. It is such. I think you feel it emotionally on the first viewing that Kane is manipulating Pershing, but watching it again and seeing the beat by beat, trying to give him what she thinks he needs. Mm-hmm. There is some similarity to Bo-Katan. Bo-Katan has been alone with her droids and her sweatpants depression throne. Yeah. After everybody that she thought was with her abandoned her, right?
Yes.
And she's being welcomed back, and maybe that feels a little good, but I think she probably also knows it's wrong. Mm-hmm. I think for me that with Bo-Katan and not yet knowing her motivations, I'm having some fun spiraling out. I'm not saying that this is clear in the episode that she's going to get vengeance. I think we're right. Being asked to go like, well, hey, this is what happens when you put your helmet on.
Yeah.
All the time. You maybe get a little cut off, and we don't know what you're thinking. I feel like where the story might be heading is there's a vision of the mythosaur that Queel would spin, that this is a symbol of what you can accomplish with patience and strength and confidence. You can work with the mythosaur. You can learn that to have it trust you and have you trust it, and you can be one with this symbol of your planet. That's the happy legend he's telling Din when he's trying to get Din to stop grumbling about learning to ride a blurg. There's the vision of the mythosaur of like that this is a positive challenge she becomes one with the mythosaur, metaphorically, brings that back to her people and says, this is a symbol of what we can all do together. This is a symbol of what good strength is. Let's come together and let's remember our strength. And the kind of things that her sister preached and that Bo-Katan at times as leader of Mandalore preached of not always saying we're in conflict with one another and might makes right, but more stronger together. That's the true symbol of the mythosaur. That's the true power of Mandalore. And it feels like that good version of what the mythosaur could be is crumbling.
Yeah.
Is somebody who thinks Bo-Katan knows that the armorer thinks it's her fault Mandalore fell. And this person, the armorer, isn't just welcoming her back to the fold. She is infantilizing Bo-Katan of you're back in my covert, following my rules. Welcome.
This is the way.
This is the way, but it is also my way.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of tension there of just like Pershing being emotionally seduced by Kane, is Bo-Katan being seduced into going back to the comfort in the rigidity of the covert and the perspective that might makes right and violence is the way.
Yeah, because I don't think she's. Yeah, I don't think she's faking. I think she's confused. I think she's angry. The reaction to her home being blown apart.
Yeah, I think she's trying to decide what to do next, right? And like with everything, she has. We've talked about week after week. If you know her story, she has chosen the real dark side of the Death Watch, and she has really tried to put that behind her and tried to be we're stronger together, Mandalore.
Yeah,
neither of them worked out for her, and now she's sitting on this powder keg and trying to decide which way to go.
Yeah. I love that look at the mythosaur on the wall at the end. It's just like it's haunting her. It's a telltale heart.
Yeah. I know it's there. There. Am I gonna try to bring everybody together with that, or am I gonna try to spin it to my advantage and crush my enemies?
Yeah. And look, I'm always rooting for people to make the characters make the great choices in Star Wars, but I also enjoy a good villain origin story. I'm not saying I want to be villain because I like the character, and I don't. That's not even a prediction. Just I personally really love that moment. Both moments, the bookend of hey, did you see anything? You didn't. Cool. And then staring at it. This means something more to me than it maybe even does to them because they want to believe. I might have the belief now. What do I do?
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think you're touching on another big idea in this episode. Probably the biggest sort of thematic thing to me that linked a lot of ideas is this idea of good intentions. That Kane is very clear on her manipulation of Pershing. I think Pershing is culpable as well. He makes choices.
Yeah.
But I feel like that's where we really get into this analysis of the New Republic as well. We see multiple individuals and groups with the New Republic and Children of the Watch who have convinced themselves that they have honorable intentions. And I think we're invited as an audience to go like, well, what do they believe in? What are they saying? Do we agree with that? Do we agree morally that is the right way to go? And even if we do agree that, hey, all of your intentions are great, are you lying to yourself about what your intentions are? And it seems like whatever your intentions are, things are going sideways. So how are we going to square what your stated goals are with what is actually happening? And I feel like that good intentions battle is happening with Pershing. It's happening with the New Republic. It's happening with the Children of the Watch. It's happening maybe even a little bit with Din. It's happening on multiple levels that I'd love to discuss.
Yeah, no, let's dive on into that because, there's this, because we got the Galaxy's Opera House stuff and you got kind of a similar Andor vibe and quite frankly, similar Star Wars vibe. We've seen a lot of other places. Let's give that other spots credit of the we shouldn't get involved and everything. And I just kept going, well, how you differentiate between the two governments, the two sides, or two warring or competing points of view is, you follow out that string to what are the intentions at the end of the day? What's the heart? And for this episode to have this big question of can you change your heart, and to tie that into, I don't know, the New Republic. They just took down the Imperial cogwheels. That's all. It's all the same. It's all the same. I thought it was a fascinating starting point to discuss that.
Yeah, and how having to ask too with Kane how much. Obviously, she is a true believer of the Imperial cause, but we don't get to go behind the scenes and understand why. If these are true political beliefs, or she is a person whose might makes right, and the New Republic's weak. Look at how easily I can play them.
Yeah.
So that's fascinating. But going to Pershing, because Pershing makes the theme of good intentions explicit by literally saying that again and again. He relates the story in the Galaxy's Opera House of kind of his beginning, his backstory, right? About how he says, "I assure you that my original intentions were good," literally. He says, "I believe the pursuit of knowledge is the most noble thing someone can do. Sadly, my research was twisted into something cruel and inhumane at the behest of a desperate individual intent on using clone technology to secure more power for himself." So I mean, this is his TED talk, right? Of like, you work in the data pits, dude, but but you have a valuable perspective. So come to a massive TED talk for the glitterati of society. And so all that stuff is thought out, right? So he's already internalized, this is my narrative. This is my story. I'm someone who believes in knowledge and science, and it's been twisted. He makes it personal by sharing this thing that I think people can probably really relate to and say, yep, cloning, genetic manipulation, yep, the ethics get complicated fast, as they say later in the episode. But when he breaks it down to, my mom had a bad heart, and you can just clone a new heart, and she wouldn't have died. And that's the truth across the board. It really invites us as the audience to relate to him that he is starting out with really good intentions, right?
Yeah.
And I think it opens him, among other things, to Kane's manipulation, that the New Republic probably has a ban on cloning for reasons. And he seems to understand what they are, right?
Yeah, he seems to know.
He seems to know. It gets complicated. But it's almost to me like he buys his own narrative. He's like, if the story of who I am is someone with utterly good intentions who just wants to help, other people not lose their mom, then I guess everything I do is okay, because it's starting from a perspective of good intentions, right? He has that thought. He entertains that thought. And then Kane's like, got him. And she literally says, you're helping the New Republic. It's the right thing to do. Or no, she says, but if it could help the New Republic, isn't it that important enough? He has that mirror moment. I feel anytime you're saying something to yourself in the mirror to convince yourself to do a thing, it's up for debate, right?
That's right.
You're helping the New Republic. It's the right thing to do, he says to himself in the mirror. And I think all of that invites us to go like, okay, well, maybe it's true that he did have good intentions. Maybe it's true that he is the kind of scientist who's just like, I want to Jurassic Park this. I want to know if I can do it. Other people will come in and control it if I shouldn't. Or other people will come in and stop the T-Rex from eating the children. Yeah. I'm a little bit of a scientist and just wants to do it. But it opens to me this question of, if he starts with good intentions that we can relate to, why is he doing it now? Why does he need it now? Is it an ego thing? He needs to know if he can finish? Is it a glory thing that he wants the breakthrough? Does he really, truly, is he still thinking of other people? There's nothing in the episode where he's looking around at sick people and going, I wish I could help. It's much more internal. It's about him. And I think one of the other fascinating things to me in this great, quiet internal indie drama across a galactic stage is that wounded ear and playing with it, and reaching up to touch this literal place of trauma a couple different times, which to me sort of invites this idea of, is he holding a grudge? Is he, Honestly, does he want to fix his ear? It's like I get my stuff back and I can fix my ear. Partially joking about that, but I think it is also a symbol of, he was caught in the middle. It was an all-in Imperial holding a blaster to Pershing's head, taunting Cara Dune about the destruction of Alderaan, and Cara Dune had to I know I'm gonna blow Pershing's ear off, but I'll do it to kill this Imperial. So this ear, if you track it back to when we saw the damage happen to it, is a little bit of a symbol of sort of being caught in the middle. And to me, that makes it feel like this isn't about good intentions. This is about understandable issues, but it's about you. It's about your ego. It's about your unresolved issues. It's about your need to get back to your past, to what you knew.
Yeah. The reasons for truly changing or truly what you're doing, and that does become personal even for me. Of even when you launch a new project, or hey, I want to do this, I'm always telling myself, no, don't believe your own hype. Even if it says nice things, make sure that can color how you approach things going forward. But also, sometimes your heart isn't in the right place, even though you think it is. And there's so many times in this episode we thought we were doing good. You want to help the Republic, they just can't see it yet. And even him asking the droid there, our main objective is to help the Republic, right? And that supersedes everything. He's not asking himself why at all, right? Just looking at the next step, looking at a lot of things you're saying. How personal is it? I don't think it's an anger based as much as maybe Bo-Katan right now. That ear thing that you're bringing up is a wonderful way to look at the ear and the house, Bo-Katan's house and the ear of what's driving them forward. I don't know. That's what I loved about this episode. I think he's confused, and that's what you feel the whole episode.
Yeah,
he's confused.
He's confused, and I think he is having a hard time on Coruscant. And I think there is more to that, and we'll get into that so I'm not just saying he's a villain. I think maybe that's where I connected with him emotionally of seeing his BSing himself in myself. I try to be a good person. I stumble. This is a funny example, but every once in a while, I see an action figure I want it's more expensive and I don't need it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then I'm like, but I could do a TikTok with it. I don't make any money from TikTok right now. I got plenty of action figures, and that is technically true, but that's not the reason you're buying this action figure. The reason is, there's a little snarling beast inside you going, I want it. Yeah. And I try to convince myself of a reason that actually it's good. Actually, I should. Just admit to yourself, you're spending more money than you should. You really want that. Be honest with yourself,
Yeah, no, I really love that. And you maybe kind of maybe focus on even more what I was trying to say there. Of there was a particular incident of a book I was trying to write about 15 years ago. And I was like, I have this idea for this book. I think it will help people. And a friend of mine heard the pitch and was like, yeah, I don't think I think you just want to do this to make money and you feel this is way forward to do it. And he was right. But that wasn't what I thought. I was holding my ear. It was a book based around something that I was experiencing and had been dealing with. And I was like, well, if I'm dealing with it, maybe I can help others. And he was like, I think I'm hearing what you're saying. And I just think you want to write a book that makes money, which of course, and that I think you would do it to help, but that maybe isn't your intentions. And it was a weird moment. I was kind of called on the carpet on this thing, and I just even hearing you talk, it just making me think more of that moment where I remember getting embarrassed, but also, well, no, that's not right. No, this is what I want to do. And he's like, yeah, but I don't think you're fully where you're coming from on the subject is not necessarily, you're still going through it. So you don't necessarily know how to help anyone else through it. Does that make sense? You're still trying to find the answers.
Yeah. And
find the answers.
And I think it really is just about that battle for honesty because, maybe Pershing's right that maybe there shouldn't be an entire ban, maybe he should, put through a request and push through it all. Maybe you should have written that book to make money and maybe it would have helped people. But what happens when we're not pursuing things while being absolutely honest with ourselves about why, Yeah. Because it starts to get into, in the episode, it starts to get into a level of dogma and mantra that is repeating it to yourself again and again. And sometimes the way this is the way is of this is the way it can be very meaningful. Din says it in a very meaningful way. He has examined parts of the creed. In parts of the creed, he has no doubt in. He believes them with his whole heart.
Yeah.
But other times it can just be we're just in lockstep, right? And the way he keeps monitoring, but it'll be good for the New Republic, right? It'll be good for the New Republic is just like this mantra he's papered over his true motivations.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. Yeah.
So this is great stuff. I'm glad we're getting into it. Now let's get into maybe one of the most challenging things to discuss: the New Republic.
Yeah.
I feel like the episode was definitely challenging the New Republic. I feel like the entire show, The Mandalorian, from the beginning has presented us with a critique of the New Republic, that they have good intentions, but they're stretched thin. They can't get all the way out to Navarro. There's even, I can't remember what the incident was, but somebody says, hey, to Din early on, like, you got a problem, take it up with the New Republic. And he's like, yeah, right. Mayfeld has questioned them. Carson Teva is obviously of the New Republic and is saying, I need more help. There's something going on and we're not paying attention. So I think the whole Mandalorian show has had a sort of like, the New Republic is trying. Now we get to go to the heart of the core worlds, and we get to see for ourselves the actions they're taking. Many of them are from books, comic books, which is really cool. But get to analyze for ourselves the same sort of good intentions filter.
Yeah.
Of here's what they're trying to do. Here's why they're trying to do it. And for me, I come at it is I'm totally open to a criticism of the New Republic. Ultimately, the New Republic does not respond well to the threat of the First Order, so they fail. And maybe the seeds of that storytelling is happening here. But I also have strongly in my bones, this is the government of Leia and Mon Mothma. They're not all powerful. They can't control everything. But I know it's starting with good intentions. So what are the good intentions, and how is the government losing its way in the application of them? I think that's what to me the show is wrestling with. What do you think about that just general way of looking at the story of the New Republic?
I think we're in the same spot where I could immediately get defensive of Leia and Mon Mothma. And I was like, oh, they're probably at the Opera House there. I wonder if we're going to do some sort of cut over time watch. But everything we've talked about Pershing and I would say everything about Bo-Katan definitely seems to apply to the New Republic, doesn't it? It's asking the question of, we've made the change. You've got some very disconnected people. Empire, Rebels, New Republic, hard to tell the difference. Well, of course, because nothing's changed for you, because you keep your mouth shut. And you, as your wife says, we try not to get involved. Yeah, of course, nothing's different for you. It's my anger towards, both sides suck type of thing. Follow that out to the intentions of them. That's how you measure it. It doesn't mean everything's perfect. Doesn't mean every choice is going to align with you. But follow it out. And I think there's a lot of examples in this episode of, it's not the old times. Dr. Fishmouth there at the end saying that, we got them at the table. Oh no, I didn't know. Of course, no. Good riddance to the Empire. I'm just like, did you miss the cheese sticks in the fridge? That's
the uniforms fit better. Yeah.
Uniforms fit better. By the way, I love one of my favorite things episode. Kitty O'Brien did a wonderful job. Just a subtle tug on her clothes every time as Kane is. She's walking in the Opera House before we even see her face, and then later on watching the Mind Flayer in action. Just that subtle tug to make it fit like the Empire. I love that little detail there and what's going on.
Is uncomfortable in that outfit as Pershing is with his life on Coruscant. Yes. Coruscant, the suit he's wearing that's not fitting. Itching, all that. Yeah, I love what you're saying, and I think there are a lot of great ideas. I love the aristocrat at the beginning. Clear connections to Andor in terms of this is the storytelling of Coruscant. It, particularly if you're wealthy, if you're on the upper levels, you are not feeling the horrors that everybody has been feeling for decades now.
You have to choose to feel it.
You have to choose to feel it. You have to see it. You have to have empathy and see that, okay, well, we're doing fine, but there isn't just more crime down in the lower levels now because more Rhodians moved in or whatever awful thing they might think, but because those people are going through poverty, and you're not. And so this aristocrat probably has, gambled with Mothma's awful husband, right?
Yeah. Perrin and this guy have definitely hung out.
Could you imagine me in the military?
We're going to draft me to go fight in the war.
Yeah. So I think he serves to set the table of this is a different vibe. The Coruscant is a world, a reality where people are not experiencing the brutal hellscape out on the outer rim of an Imperial warlord, the life that Pershing's been living. Every other time we've seen Pershing, he's been captured, shot at.
Yeah,
we've never seen this character have a moment of peace out in the outer rim. Constant conflict and terror for him. So there's that world building of he's really uncomfortable in this world, but I also think that line from the aristocrat is almost a theme statement, and from his partner there of Empire, Rebels, New Republic. I can't keep track. That's the fear. That's the fear hanging over everything. Is the New Republic means well. They are obviously and explicitly and without any doubt trying to do things different and better than the Empire, but will they fail?
Yeah.
That's the question. That's a question that's been raised by, Grief Karga even this season, saying we don't want yet another bureaucracy coming in here, and Mayfeld being snarky about them. I know, right? It is a huge stretch for Bill Burr to play that character. It raises that question, and then I think it goes through and kind of shows us some of the beats of how are they trying to be different, and are they succeeding?
It's all singing right in harmony, especially when you pull on the New Republic stuff in this episode, which is why I think, despite it being a song choice that I didn't expect the DJ to play, it definitely is intriguing. It's an episode. Mando. I'm not saying Mando's been predictable, but it's definitely had repeatable patterns and stuff that you can kind of see where it's going. And then I think we all maybe can just fall on that as pundits, podcasters, even fans. And I think this episode was such a switch for me, that I love wrestling with the stuff and including kind of what you're getting at here. And we said it earlier, but like, I would be defensive of a takedown of the New Republic. I really would. And I want the show to maybe eventually figure out what it wants to say about that. I mean, it probably knows what it wants to say, but like, tell me a little more. What do you feel about this? Because I think that even with you mentioning the Grief Karga moment, I understand the character of Grief Karga is going to still have that kind of view. New Republic doesn't even like my robes or my robe droid. Like, no. But what is it? What do you want me as an audience member to take away from it?
Yeah, and I do feel like they're building toward more of a thesis, and I think they're building toward like what are the foundations of the New Republic that were wobbly that helped allow a poor response to the threat of the First Order, right? Yeah. We've got some things in books. I really like in Bloodline the idea that the government was structured to be a little bit more loose and open, so there could be debate, and it was really held together well by Mon Mothma, but then it's gotten into a bunch of bureaucracy and red tape and bickering when Mothma retires. Yeah. That's one picture I like of the structural dysfunction, but I think they're dealing with something else. They're dealing with rebirth and change and the stumbles that might happen. And I think the same way that I often talk about justice for the Jedi, I think I have a little bit of an instinct to say justice for the New Republic, in that it's easy to just sit back and go, well, they screwed up, and yes, they did. Absolutely, they did. Right. But then that can kind of slip into sort of some fence-sitting ideology of they're all bad, they're all the same. And to me, the story of the Jedi and the story of the New Republic is they have great intentions to do incredibly tricky, difficult things. It's hard to build a good society. It's hard to make the correct choices and find ways to implement them that work for everybody. That is the great work of society, the great work of government. And I feel like the New Republic is trying, and now we're saying, well, how and where do they stumble? I think specifically in this episode, I love that they make it quite clear, and I'll make a moral judgment here. I think it's pretty great to offer amnesty, rather than being executed the way you would by the Empire of, oh, hey, you know what? Turns out you're part of this creepy armored guy, Darth Vader's quota. He gets to kill 7 of us a month. No trial, no problem. No, don't even need to tell our loved ones about it. Obviously, I love that line where the officer at the amnesty officer at the table with Pershing is like, yeah, that's not how the Empire would have handled it. And then quietly in the background, like, not big on redemption, the Empire. So I would argue that, yes, amnesty giving, not just saying if you touched the Empire, you're in prison, but saying like, come be a part of things. So good intention, and now the episode gets us to ask, but how is it being handled? Do they have the people to handle it? Are they dehumanizing them the way they're doing it? Are they taking very skilled people and not letting them use their skills and therefore creating resentment? You can have a lot of questions about they executed it well, but I think it starts with legitimately good intentions. Don't just imprison massive swaths or execute massive swaths of the galaxy. Try to offer them a path into a new society. What do you think about just analyzing that one beat, that one idea?
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that there. And that's, I think, why I said I get a little defensive there. And I don't even think the show is the right to analyze it and point it out and make us think about the real world. And I want to play it out there. But no, I absolutely love those beats. There's a couple of those beats of even Dr. Baby Fishmouse at the end, just kind of, by the way, I went on a journey with that character. We'll talk about it in action. Just go, oh, no, we don't do that here, son. But asking in an episode titled The Convert, did this government really convert as well, is completely fair. But I'm with you. I think measuring the intentions, that's the true test of one's heart, measuring the actions, measuring what you're trying to do. But along the way and how you try to do something, of course you can maybe lose focus. Of course you can do it wrong. Of course you could, the execution of from script to screen, of course, right? And I think there's some things in this episode that maybe are analyzing that. You had a great thought off there that I'm sure you're going to discuss, but it's just the droids, everything being droids and how they, I think there's some powerful stuff there. But I think at the beginning, I love that. I do love the conversations because I tell you what, truthfully, at the end of the day, I believed everyone else at the table but Kane.
Yeah, and I think they were honestly wrestling with it of like, we were conscripted. We were told this is the right thing to do. Maybe we saw some horror shows. We definitely saw that you could if this was the other way around, the Empire would have blasted every rebel in the back of the head and dumped them in a pit. Yep. And they all seem clear on that. Yep. So we're starting from a good point, but then what can go wrong? I felt like that was there. I love the mention of that they're still working on decommissioning the Alliance fleet, which is a thing that has been established in canon, that Mothma really doesn't want to show a fist to the galaxy. So we're not a military organization anymore. We don't need a fleet. We don't need this war fleet. Obviously, they do later have some ships that are destroyed by the Starkiller base. But that's got a good tension to me because I think it is honorable to try to say, let's not show a fist to the galaxy. Let's not make this about, we're not making you follow New Republic rules because we will blow up your planet. We're trying to make you follow them because you believe in the goal of a better society for everyone. But that's kind of even hard to go like, ooh, it's hard to hear about decommissioning the Alliance fleet when earlier we saw Bo-Katan and Din have to run from a fleet of TIE interceptors that's too big for a warlord to happen. And when you combine that with Carson Teva just flying around the Outer Rim going, well, someone listen to me. Something's going on. So you have another good, like, okay, well, that's a good intention. You're not being the Empire. The Empire would never decommission their fleet. They are their fleet, right? Yeah. But then there's like, okay, are you stepping away from the Empire in a bad way now, And the whole episode has some push and pull of the New Republic is being rigid about if it's Imperial, it's gone. Cloning is we're just not doing it now. Maybe later, but no, just no cloning at all. We are destroying Star Destroyers, even if they have valuable equipment. It's Imperial equipment. It's gotta go. Yeah. And then at the end of the episode, we have one thing where like, this is clearly awful. It's a mind flayer and it's real. Yeah. And it is a horrific torture device. It is the legacy of the Empire, but we think we can make it work to be something more positive. So if the episode is raising this question of good intentions, I almost think it's playing with the audience in some ways. Some moments I could see the audience being like on Pershing's side of like, why won't you let him pursue make all the rules you want about what he can and can't do, but why won't you let him pursue making organs for moms? You can't let him do hearts for moms. Like, oh, and you got to burn that perfectly good, comm equipment because it had an Imperial insignia on it. You're almost invited to agree with Pershing that this is overkill. Yeah. But then you're pushed the other way when you're like, well, the New Republic shouldn't have a mind flare no matter how fun they made it.
It's just like a nice shot to the brain. It's like a whiskey shot, make you feel great.
Yeah. So how did you deal with that tension? When were you keeping a scorecard of, I think the New Republic should do this, I think they shouldn't do this?
Not necessarily, but the end beat affected me where I again, this is where I'm not saying this is a problem with this episode of the show. It's an open-ended, well, we'll see what happens. We're going to put your brain in this thing. We kind of like it. It's all the same to us, even though I'm saying it's not the same. I walked away with a little bitter taste in my mouth of them kind of lumping the New Republic in with the Empire. I felt that was what I took from the final scene. Not that the show's saying that that's the case, but I think a lot of people might extrapolate that from the scene. And I think the others don't like that.
I think for me, at the end of the day, I think there's the question of the New Republic, can it be different than the Empire? Mm-hmm. And in order to try to say, like, no, we're not. And so many people say, like, well, we're not the Empire. Dr. Amon Calamari Funny Voice was like, this isn't the Empire, right? Mm-hmm. But it almost seems to me like that's the chink in the armor. That maybe they're right to just burn Imperial equipment. Maybe they're right to just say no cloning right now. The one bit of Imperial horror show where they're like, yeah, we can repurpose it. I feel like the doctor believes it, right? I think he thinks it's guided meditation. He thinks it's truly helpful, right? He has good intentions, but the existence of this thing that is controlling and rigid and meant to cause pain still has the potential, and and that's she just literally turns it back to what it had been, right? Of a torture machine. So I feel like almost it's almost more supporting New Republic of like, yep, no cloning, yep, yep, decommission the fleet, yep, burn every Imperial scrap everywhere. This is what happens when you leave a little bit of the legacy of that horror still around, is it gets turned right back to horror.
Yeah, I like that thought. I like that thought. You make me think more about some of the stuff in the episode, and maybe I should have kept a checklist. No, and I think again, I'm not pointing fingers at the show and saying, how dare you say this? I think it's right to ask these questions. I just sometimes fear that this is going to lead to that's the danger of leaving art to be interpreted, right? It's the danger, I've had people try to tell me that Kylo Ren represents the wokes trying to burn down Confederate statues. Like I literally had that sent to me once, and like, oh well, you're right to take that from the scene, I guess. But the mind flayer thing had that vibe for me at the end. Again, might just be me.
Yeah. No, I think there is a lot of ambiguity, and like I said, I feel like that this is such a statement that we are going to be continuing this conversation. This wasn't our New Republic episode. Like we got Skeleton Crew coming, we got Ahsoka coming. I think we're going to have a lot more questions about what is the right way to build a society. I want to come back to the Children of the Watch and their idea of good intentions, but since we're talking about New Republic, I want to dive into, I think, one of the really clear things in the episode, which is mechanization. And to me, this is a little bit more clear story that has been built up about the New Republic of we have all these ideals of how people should be treated. We have ideas that we drew up for systems that we should keep in place about how we handle prisoners, that we have these ships. They are mostly automated with robots. We take some prisoners to these chop shop planets, Carthon. That's mostly automated. And then to see that everything in Pershing's experience is automated and non-organic and alienating was really, really powerful, and does feel like is that a mistake of a vision, or is that a true, like, you just don't have the numbers, you just don't have the resources? but it's a crack in your system because it's affecting to see the New Republic giving these amnesty members numbers and having them refer to one another in numbers.
Yes.
Seeing Pershing work in a monotonous data entry type job, to have his ability to communicate, to raise an idea, be like, well, you have to fill out the Office Space form. And I don't even know if somebody with your history can. Like, it's all the, rigid, trapped, and the sheer volume of droids, right? You get the sense that the New Republic is literally on autopilot. The train security droids, the taxi droids, and most affectingly, the parole droid, which almost felt to me like I'm really struggling with feeling trapped by how much we have mechanized society, where everything is an interaction with a computer, where sometimes what you want to do is really straightforward. And if you could just tell a human, it would go away. Like you and I are going to the UK soon for the Star Wars Celebration. And we need to tell our banks and our credit card companies that we'll be in the UK so they don't auto shut us down. It's the simplest thing in the world. I just said the sentence, right? So now we just need to tell the bank. It's a nightmare to think of. How many parole droids do we have to go through to quote unquote tell the bank, right? Yeah. And just one thing isn't a big deal. But when your whole life is like, almost everything I've done is just tried to convince a binary system of a subtle thing. That's so what's going on in this episode. And so I think Pershing becomes utterly numb. He's lost connection. He's lost purpose. And it leaves him incredibly vulnerable to Kane's manipulation.
Yeah, and her manipulation was brilliant, right? If that's what you're rooting for, you look at it from the very beginning. And I think you're right. When the Star Wars theme of connection and community is important, and that's not on display here. And that's I was shocked about the numbers a little bit, right? That made me go, well, why would you do that? Why not? Hey, it's Penn. It's Dr. Penn. Like, you don't need it. Yeah. So I'm fine analyzing it from that. I'm fine poking at it and saying, hey, there could be a better way to do this. And maybe this is why things fell a little bit later. Yeah,
and there's that kind of intimation that the reintegration locations, which some of this Alphabet Squadron is dealing with very early iterations of that, right? Of trying to find, like, what are the systems? How are we going to, work with Imperials? Who's willing to work with us? All that stuff. This is totally not in the show and just headcanoning, but you can see, like, people in the New Republic being like, we need to offer them back into society, unless it's, Tarkin level criminal. Like, they have a war tribunal. They're not like saying, Moff Gideon, would you like to do data entry? Right. They have a line, but for anybody else who maybe just got swept up in it, you can imagine somebody being like, we got to give them another chance. And like somebody else a little bit more hard edge being like, okay, but there got to be guardrails up,
Yeah.
Reintegration, no names, no interacting with people, droids, we'll make them comfortable, but we're going to keep them on a tight leash. There's a zone on Coruscant and they can't leave it, right? You can almost imagine this is a beautiful idea that is scary and risky to think the best of people and to bring them back into society and to give them another chance and to not be the Empire. And then you can see the kind of incrustation of the concern about who these people are.
Yeah, absolutely, built into it. Yeah, absolutely. They give them drab gray apartments, no paintings on the wall.
Hey, look, Pershing's apartment was, almost more spacious than mine. So he wasn't hurting.
He's doing all right.
He was doing all right, in my opinion. Yeah. But I think, we'll talk about the canon of Umate, the mountain, but that seeing that mountain that's consumed with technology, this kind of image of it being consumed everywhere you go with technology, I thought was great. And I thought it was a great real breaking point of Pershing is wanting to finish what he started. He's feeling boxed in. Kane is opening him up. And I love that what appears to be his breaking point is that there's perfectly good Imperial machinery that's being thrown away.
Yeah.
And it feels like a real me moment for him, of like, I'm perfectly good imperial machinery that's being thrown away.
Great way to look at it. I just want to build mom hearts.
I just want to build mom hearts, everybody. I was so close to unlocking the way to build mom hearts that are even better.
Mm-hmm.
Not just one for one heart, but a heart that's a combination of two strands.
Yeah. Build a super clone heart. Yeah.
And then all of Kane's manipulation, I think, really speaks to that. She offers him the excitement, connection, life, even down to like her final manipulation right before they get to the lab. When she has I must have walked past you 100 times on Gideon's ship. We should have known each other. Here's my real name. We're not numbers. We're people. It's great and it's dark because it's taking something that Star Wars often values. The clones choose their names. They're not their CT numbers, right?
Yes.
And turning it on its head and having Kane use that desire for connection is absolutely cruel, brutal manipulation.
Yeah, I particularly love the touch the mountain sequence. Just her testing him. How far will he go? How much does he trust me? How much does he want this? How much does he want that kind of connection? It's a funny little prank bit, but obviously it was her testing, and I thought it was effective. And exactly for what you're saying, of just taking things that Star Wars has preached are good and twisting it around, which is often what evil does.
Yeah, and I think that was one of my favorite shots of Pershing. It was just like, I can touch something real.
Yeah.
And he's so trepidatious, but he looks a little bit of awe, like like when you haven't like just been outside and like smelled a tree. Yeah. And you're feeling encrusted by it. So I think that it's definitely a thing that the New Republic can be criticized for. They are drilling the soul out of some of these people that they're trying to rehabilitate.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So I want to jump back then, if you're okay with it, to Children of the Watch in this idea of good intentions.
Totally.
We still haven't in the actual show. We've definitely seen elements of the way that different things that are the way and what their culture is, and that there is an element of you're always hunter and prey. Might makes right. And anybody can challenge anybody. It's always Paz Vizsla challenging Din. But there's like, we're family, we're community. Unless one family member kicks your ass, then that is the way. So we've seen bits and pieces of it. But pulling back to what the old Mandalorian ways are, what we saw Death Watch do in the Clone Wars, the episode we meet Bo-Katan, a friend in need, where they are enslaving a local community because they can, because might makes right. The show Mandalorian hasn't fully played its hand with that. But I've been really watching the Children of the Watch with that in mind, that they are connected to that philosophy. Yeah. So I was really affected by what's been built up the last few episodes, that there's lots that we can see the Children of the Watch believe. There's lots of statements of what is the way that, to me, morally, sound great. Loyalty and solidarity are the way. Protecting foundlings is the way. Anyone can be a Mandalorian if they decide to be a part of the society and a productive member of it. This rigid way even has a possibility of redemption. Might be asking a lot to go bathe in the living waters, but there is a path to redemption. There are all these things that the Children of the Watch believes, that Din believes with all his heart, that protecting foundlings, providing for foundlings is the way. They're all great, but lurking under that is this absolute rigidity, a worship of violence, a certainty that might makes right. And I feel like those are the ideas that Bo-Katan is wrestling with, right? They're patting Bo-Katan on the back, just like Pershing got the connection that he was missing. She's been walked out on, alone. Her entire family is dead. And it must feel good to be patted on the back and to be a part of something again. But the people who are patting her on the back are part of the murder cult that got her sister killed.
Yeah.
Where do you go with that?
Where'd I go? I again love this little look over of what does it all mean to her, and you're talking about the loss of connection that might drive you somewhere. I'm not again pitching Bo-Katan as a villain. I don't necessarily think I want that. I'm fascinated by it. I'm fascinated by analyzing the children of the Watch, and all the things you're talking about are things that have kept them alive. It's how they've survived. I think those kind of traditions and things that are close to your heart can absolutely be used for that. But when they're not even manipulated, but when they are then also used in an outwardly way to destroy, to secure your power, to control, and then you got some problems. And I think that's what I see all the time with the Armorer. I think you're so right. Go back to season 1. We love this character.
Mm-hmm.
Both love what Emily Swallow's doing with this character, but season 1, right? It's a little bit more of a and you hit those stormtroopers with those hammers. And now when I see her, I have visible confusion, like Obi-Wan Kenobi and Camino in Attack of the Clones. Visible confusion. I can't wait for her and Bo-Katan to have a sit down, maybe a fight, but a sit down to get into what you want. And I just don't know Bo-Katan's place in that right now, because everything you're saying, that the loss of home. And then finding community, a big Star Wars theme again. You're talking about it being manipulated on Coruscant. It's going to be kind of maybe potentially manipulated here. I just see her. I don't fully trust where she's going with it right now, which I love. It's a big question for me.
Yeah. Well, we know the Armorer does not think well of her. The Armorer thinks it's her family's fault. Satine's leadership and Bo-Katan's leadership that allowed the purge to happen.
Yep.
That they were weak. They abandoned the old ways. To hear the Armorer tell it's almost a tale of superstition. It was written that this time would come and somebody would make that choice, you know? So there's a lot there that, like, we know the Armorer doesn't agree with Bo-Katan, blames her for stuff. So is this the Armorer just trying to pacify and control Bo-Katan, offer her community, but really take her off the board, you know?
Yeah. Oh, I like that idea. This is why I don't believe anything Bo-Katan's doing right now. And again, that's not saying villain, bad choices. I'm just intrigued by it. That's what I was, of all the things in the episode, when I shut the episode off and went to bed, I was like, what is she doing?
Yeah. And I feel like it's such I feel like there isn't a conclusion in this episode. We're being set up with all these great questions, just like we're being set up with the questions of how do we feel about the New Republic? What are they trying to do right? What are they failing at? How is this going to lead to their mistakes in the future? I feel like that's the same kind of questions that are being raised about the Children of the Watch. Could the Children of the Watch evolve and go, these parts of the creed gotta go, right? Because it's what Bo-Katan expressed last episode. If we keep this might makes right, you know, perspective, we're never gonna unify, right?
Yeah.
And then we will be crushed again when Moff Gideon comes. To smash us, I don't know, just for fun. We'll see what the motivation ends up being. But I think it's this huge thing on the table, this great construction where, just like some of the audience, Din hasn't watched the animated shows. Din does not know the history. And what's it going to do to Din's relationship with Bo-Katan when he's been told by the Armorer, she's a symbol of this. She's a symbol of weakness. And Bo-Katan turns to him and is like, Din, MFer.
Yeah.
I was in a version of this.
Yeah.
I used to follow the way. I know what it means, you know?
Yeah.
And he doesn't know that she understands that yet. That's important in their relationship, and it's important for the audience to understand that part of her history. So I think that's got to be coming.
I absolutely think so. I mean, come on. You got Paz Vizsla there. We got some pre-Vizsla connections. Let's get to it. Let's talk about it.
Yeah.
Let's have Armor and Bo-Katan, Din all sit down, have one of the most tense dinners in history.
I want Din and Bo-Katan to go to the Galaxy's Opera House, and then I want Bo-Katan to turn to Din and say, have you heard the tragedy of the Duchess Satine?
Yeah.
It's not a story the Armorer would tell you.
By the way, I would love that name mentioned.
It's gotta be. It's just so core. There was a great interview with Katie Sackhoff going around of her talking about like that's her core motivation. That's everything. she made this choice. She threw in with these people, and she brought Maul in this horror to Mandalore.
Yeah. I'm just waiting. I'm waiting for that. They'll get to it, but I'd love to hear that name on screen.
Yeah. Last kind of thought for me in terms of this sort of good intention thing. We did not spend a ton of time with Din. He had his major accomplishment, but he's just fine. He's just going. Not a lot of time with Grogu. But to me, it was a funny beat, but a real significant beat that, Din's like, yeah, never taking my helmet off again, which I did to save my child and have an emotional connection with him, but never doing that again. And kind of pushing Bo-Katan to agree with, this is the way. And then Grogu kind of half babbling, this is the way. Yeah. I mean, it was not, I don't think it was like, ooh, those sounds are, this is the way. It was just like, it felt like he doesn't have full speech skills yet and was trying to say it.
Yeah.
Which when you're viscerally getting into, it's one thing for us to do fun art of fan art of Grogu's Mando helmet,
Mm-hmm.
But it's another thing for the show to really raise what exactly are the Children of the Watch. And we know Din has the greatest intentions in love for Grogu, but what is he indoctrinating Grogu into? And does he fully understand?
Yeah, and my answer to that is no, and I love it. I love the central question of, can you change your heart? What's your heart, and what are your intentions? I think it shows up there. I love that. Yeah, I'm going to go rewatch that moment too and focus on that gurgle a little bit more. But because again, we've watched all the shows. I love that. I love that example with Din. Din clearly hasn't watched or read any of these books. Back to season 1. What are Jedi, sir? We have the benefit of knowledge, which just makes it more powerful, I think, and I love that. Trying to protect. I want to protect Grogu from that.
Yeah, and I think everything that's in the show. I'm sorry. What's that?
I want him to see his dad's face again. Come on.
Yeah, right. A show that is kind of like in one episode going like, ooh, making people use their numbers, making them do data entry, regardless of what their desires for fulfilling jobs are. That's bad. But wearing a helmet all the time and never showing another human being your face, that's great.
That's
great. Is it? Is it?
Yeah. Mm-mm.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
I wanted to, as we always do, check in on the title. Sometimes the titles are straightforward, and sometimes they have multiple meanings. Sometimes they're up for interpretation. So where did you go with the convert? How did you interpret it?
Sure. The question of who is the convert comes to mind. I really think it goes into all the characters, including the New Republic. I really think we've taken the deep dive into that theme. I do think this is Pershing's story, this episode. It's so intertwined with Bo-Katan. And she quote unquote converts at the end. That's fair. But I the gunslinger, the believer, all these titles, who's the Jedi, all these titles we've seen before, the heiress. I really think it's about him and trying to answer that question of what is truly converting. Can you? The intentions of it all there. So I went with him in that there, but I definitely think it applies to other parts of the story.
Yeah, I think it's a great title because it's so clear and it seems like, I get this. This is about whether Pershing can make the conversion in from, scary scientist for a horrific warlord to productive member of Coruscant society. That's what it really looks like on the surface. But then to me, the episode does become about both Pershing and potentially Bo-Katan converting back to their old ways. When you hear the convert, you think it's about kind of forward movement. And this was almost like the backwards convert to me.
Yeah. That could work.
Was there anything that you really disliked or questioned in the episode? I think you've been saying some really great things that the episode, you're meant to question things. And I don't think there is. Some people might disagree with us. I don't think there is a final statement on the New Republic. Obviously, they are making some mistakes, but it is more complicated than that. So we enjoyed questioning things throughout the episode. But was there anything else that you disliked or questioned?
Just, I think we've touched on some of the change in songs, all that kind of stuff. I think you can question just how they executed the episode. I think that's fair. I think, but like I said, I really liked this episode. It got me thinking, perhaps more than other Mando episodes recently. But here's one little. This is a nitpick. Okay, can I, sir? Can I share a nitpick?
Pick your nit.
Well, this came up during Andor. when Sergeant Buddy drops the S word. And I don't want that in Star Wars all the time. I don't need F words. I don't need that. But I remember I had to go back and rewatch the episode because I saw it on Twitter. And it's like, I didn't even hear a swear word. Oh, there it is. And I even said this in our Force Center Discord. I do like an Achuta. I do like this and that. At the end of the day, I think at some point you can drop the mud scuffers and the dank ferrix. At least keep them. You have this great moment. Her castle's being destroyed. Those mud scuffers bomb my home. I just don't like that. Just say the imps, say anything, they bomb my home. It's too silly for me. I'm sorry. And I went to Discord with that. It gets me being grumpy. Stop it. Stop dank ferrix. Stop. Just every once in a while. Every once in a while. All right. Even in Battlestar Galactica, after Frack or Frick or whatever it was for a while, I get it. You can't say it. You can't say the F word. I got it. I don't know. Is it a nitpick? Yeah, but it shows up a lot. And in this great moment, this epic sequence, you got this one little word that I was just like, it's 1 a.m. Please don't do that to me.
No, I get that. I think to me, it's a real fine line with the swearing. I don't mind that Lieutenant Mosk somehow knows that he's in grounded Star Wars, so he just drops the S-bomb. With the Star Trek shows on Paramount Plus, they were, able to swear. And there's part of it is it was really fun to hear some swear. Great, amazing to hear Picard drop the F-bomb. Right. But then for me, my nitpick is and I've said this before, if the S word exists, I got to make up headcanon about why Han Solo is not referring to everything with the S word.
Yeah.
Right. And I can that word only exists in, Lieutenant or Mosk's culture, whatever. That's fine. But I think for me, at the end of the day, I didn't even pick out what you said. I heard the something, bombed their home, and I was concentrating on that great idea because we could talk more about the idea of home. Is powerful in this. Din gets to kind of return to his. Bo-Katan loses hers, the place you used to be able to retreat to. Pershing is unable to adjust to his new one. Already we have this season with different people trying to get Din to settle down in different places. Is he going to live by the hot springs? So it was a powerful moment, and I can see how you could be bumped out of it because for me, the fake swearing hinges on, does it feel visceral, so it feels like a real swear word. Frack, it became a little bit of a kind of in culture nerd joke, but it worked for me because it sounded visceral.
Yeah, I
feel like they've overused dank ferric, but dank ferric works for me because it sounds visceral. I used to have a stand-up bit about trying to come up with new swear words, and the joke of these words, these syllables don't mean anything, but I'm going to call my mom and I'm going to say them to her. And if she recoils, I can use that as a fake swear word because it's about the visceral feeling, right?
Yes. That's beautiful.
Mud Scuffers doesn't, it's almost there for me, but it's not quite visceral enough.
It's fine. Some moof milker did. I have no, people, you can all tweet at me that I'm being too grumpy and nitpicky. I totally am. I just, in that one particular moment, I just that's when you can maybe let go of those things.
Yeah. It's a battle to how to get them across tone wise. We all loved all the scobbing.
Those scobbers could have worked. Yeah,
from Drew and Freedy. There was another the Scug hole, and that there was a Bo-Katan was swearing up a storm in this episode. Totally. For me, I think I've already mentioned. I like the New Republic being questioned. I do have a little bit of #justice for the New Republic in that I think they have good intentions, and we've heard a lot of people's criticism. A lot of people from the outside, from the outer rim, and if we're going to tell the story of the New Republic, I am eager at some point to get Carson Teva in here and stand up for the New Republic a little bit. Get Sinjar Rath Velas, Mothma's aide, in here going, this is why we did this. It might not be working, but we're trying. Yeah. This is. Would you really want the Empire back? I don't think you do. I don't think we're the same. I think we're failing, but I don't think we're the same.
Yeah, we're not the same. Yeah, absolutely.
I want that perspective in the show at some point.
Yeah, we're not the same. Great Matthew Sweet song from 100% Fun coming up next after Oasis and Radiohead here on Mando Radio.
All right, we're going to take a quick bathroom break, and we're going to be back to spin the indie hits in just a moment. Back in a moment. And we are back on what is clearly going to be a supersized episode of the Mandalorian Report. So many great ideas and questions to talk through. We also want to get into some of the canon, the lore, great ideas there, and also the moments of fun, the moments that make Star Wars the whiz-bang adventure serial it is, with moments of action, moments of comedy, all that great stuff. But let's get into the canon and the lore. Ken, this was a dense episode. I want to start here with cloning, clarity, and history.
Got it.
People are excited to talk about the direct connections with Bad Batch. So we get in Pershing's TED Talk that the groundbreaking work of the Kaminoans, thanks to the groundbreaking work of the Kaminoans, we know that cloning can duplicate an individual from a single genetic strand. Great catch up on, hey, did you miss Attack the Clones?
Yeah.
But then he goes a little bit forward to saying what my work explored, and what he is obsessed apparently with continuing. What my work explored was the hope of combining multiple strands to create replicas that incorporated the best genetic attributes of both donors. Mm-hmm. So a couple things going on here that I want to ask you about. First is just the Bad Batch, the animated show that probably not as many people are watching as Mandalorian, is exploring all this history of when the Empire takes the technology from the Kaminoans. We are in the midst of this story with the evil Dr. Royce Hemlock manipulating this. We know that there's a connection of cloning in Rise of Skywalker. How do you feel about all of the storytelling of the history of cloning in the galaxy being approached from all these different storytelling venues at different points in time? Is that working for you?
It's working for me. It's funny because in the past I've been on record saying, with all due respect to the clones that I love and the movie Attack the Clones and the Clone Wars, I don't follow the clone stuff in sci-fi much. I turn off my brain a little bit to it. I just don't. Not a negative opinion. I have a neutral opinion on it. But yet here it is so prominently in Star Wars that I think I've forgotten I felt that way. Because I'm intrigued by it. I'm intrigued by what it means. I'm intrigued by the moral implications and the moral gray areas and the questions. Even Pershing's acknowledging and understands that some people have that point of view. But here's what I want to do. I want to create super moms, if you will, super soldiers. You could look at it that way if it gets into the wrong hands. So I'm definitely intrigued because it ties into bigger things. Then it ties into the Palpatine of it all. Now, I think one of the things if it sounds like I'm hesitant to it, Joseph, it's because I don't necessarily think all the dots connect to Exegol. You and I have talked about that. I don't think I need them to, but it's very possible that they're pushing that way because we have the lingering question of the clones and their identities and what we do with them and what would New Republic do with that technology and exists and the idea of cloning Zillo beasts and what a power, an unlimited power. It all fits and works for me in Star Wars. And it's fascinating that it's all kind of happening at the same time. Yeah,
no, I really agree. I think I've always been fascinated by the clones and the Clone Wars. You know, I grew up thinking that the Clone Wars were a war about the ethics of cloning. And, you know, yeah, not a war that clones fought. So that was a fun canon surprise for old Joseph in 2002. I really like that the clone story in the technology of cloning is advancing on multiple fronts because I'm fascinated by the ethics of it. I'm fascinated by the pulpy story of it, what unnatural things is Palpatine trying to do ultimately. I also just like that it's an ad of like, please, if people are enjoying this storyline, enjoying The Mandalorian, this is an ad for Bad Batch, right? Like you can see some of what was in his TED Talk in exciting, thrilling stories in the animated show Bad Batch, you know?
Yeah.
And then I think I'm really interested in the real slow storytelling of building back to the sequel trilogy. I don't think that we're going to have necessarily a moment where Snoke emerges, but I feel like a lot of people think some of the ambiguous floating forms that are not quite right, that we see some in Bad Batch early on when the Kaminoans are still working on a little something extra. When we go to the facility on Navarro and we find that they're working on a little something extra, and you get these blobs that many fans think like that's the road to Snoke, and I'd be fine with that, you know.
I'd be totally fine with that. Yeah.
But I think the most direct and immediate question for the Mandalorian is exactly what are Gideon's loyalties and what is he up to?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Why does he want to create replicas that incorporate the best genetic attributes of both donors when one of the donors is one of the few Force-sensitive beings we can find?
Mm-hmm.
And it is clearly wanted for its M count.
Yeah.
Since it's midi-chlorian count, if we're allowed to say the M word out loud.
Agree with that.
Joking, everybody. I think there's just a really interesting story to be told. I think the threat of Gideon is being raised. We have the little canon of, did he escape or not? Is this larger fleet attacking Bo-Katan from him? Probably. Are the Mandalorians uniting so they can, get revenge and or, save themselves from being annihilated by Gideon? Gideon is continuing to be set up as this threat. So there's this interesting question of it. Is he a loyal foot soldier of the baby First Order that's in the unknown regions, and is he trying to help make Snoke happen? Or is he trying to do something to himself? Is he trying to build some sort of super soldier that is obedient to him and Force sensitive? Yeah. That stuff that's both morally interesting and pulpy sci-fi fantasy fun. I'm really intrigued by where is all this going.
See, yeah, no, I like this because if I had to put some credits down right now, I think this is about Gideon and his goals and gains. I'm only saying this because I saw a click through an article this morning, and it basically suggested, because Star Wars has revealed that Grogu plus Omega equals Snoke. Did not take that. Is it possible? Of course. There's no way that's what that episode was saying to me. And I think again, it comes that thing of then we're going to have to deal with that if it's not. If Gideon wants to build Gideon 2.0 and suddenly, wow. So it just takes the discourse, I guess, use that dreaded D word, into an area that I'm just already dreading, which is not about what's on screen. I'm with you too. If that is the case, or Gideon is like, I'm helping build Snoke bodies, that's great, and I want to find out more about that because just in terms of canon, like if Gideon was left behind and he wasn't part of the contingency plan, why the hell is he going to go help the ghost of Palpatine then?
Yeah,
Palpatine didn't deem him worthy. Does Ray Sloan send an email back? Hey, we missed you at the bus stop. Like I don't know. Those are fun questions. But Gideon, to me, with a Darksaber, this is someone who went it was an ISB agent to me. Maybe he hung around with Partagaz, but he wasn't to me. He was known. He was maybe known for being brutal. Maybe had a reputation, but he has the Darksaber and he has it for himself. He didn't fly out to unknown regions. He's not out there. He might end up being involved somehow. I'm always open to it, but I'm with you. All the stuff is intriguing because the question is, what does it mean for him right now?
I agree. And I think we've talked about it in the past, and I have had some conjecture agreeing with you that this might be more interesting if it's about Gideon, right? If, hey, he took over some research that, they got that research going on, in the unknown regions, with the First Order and with Exegol and all that going on. Ahsoka might push into unknown regions since I don't know why, but all fans seem to have just assumed that's where Ezra and Thrawn are. That's where the Purgle is. The Purgatory is somewhere in the unknown region. So Ahsoka very much that show might tie up those threads. But looking at the story of the Mandalorian, and Moff Gideon is right now the big bad of the Mandalorian. It seems like everything we've seen about him is he represents this dark side of the worst of what Mandalorians can be, where might makes right, and obsessed with his power. And we know that he spent a big chunk of his Imperial time putting his boot down on Mandalore, being in charge there, and cracking down on it when they had the audacity to fight back, right? So it almost seems more like he is somebody who's like, maybe even he's supposed to hand over this technology to Ray Sloan, or whatever. but that this is about him, that he has been wounded by people thinking they have more power than him, and he's got to prove him wrong. That's what it seems like Bo-Katan's house is about. Is like, hey, yeah, okay, you were a part of arresting me. You were a part of taking some of my ships.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to hurt you back. I'm going to prove that I'm the most powerful. And that psychology seems to me of somebody of like, can you clone a body and have me unnaturally take Grogu's abilities?
Yeah. Yeah, because again, and this is just, I'm not saying this is a definitive answer. It's fun canon questions, but it's like those TIE interceptors come racing out there, and we get a feeling it's from something bigger than just some random warlord, of course. And then we got even the mentions of Gideon, and I thought he went to trial. Oh, no, I thought he escaped the trial. Oh, it's just a cover. I heard on the HoloNet that this is what happened on the dark HoloNet. Look, if he's arrested and he does escape or whatever, what? You're going to get out to the unknown regions if you know about it. And if you've been working on Snoke tubes and all this stuff, like, to me, logically, he would then be like, I'm out of here. Not, he's sticking around. And it's not just because the research isn't done. It's because he wants the dominion over this realm, to me.
Yeah.
And that's just more, it's bigger. It makes Gideon bigger than just a small piece in a bigger imperial cogwheel in the unknown regions.
It makes it personal. It makes it that he wants to prove he is stronger than all Mandalorians, and he's going to wipe every one of them off the map.
Yeah.
Because he wants to for himself, not because it's some great imperial strategy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. It's really powerful. I also think, I think we have already got a long episode, so we do not need to get into super real world genetic morality. But I do think it is interesting that that Pershing pivots pretty quickly from let's make mom hearts to I was very close to combining genetic attributes so I could make beings be the way they should be, is pretty quick leap from making mom hearts to
yep.
I will make what I want to make. Also on the Gideon point, I think it is, important that in his TED Talk, he says, my research was tested in something cruel and inhumane at the behest of a desperate individual intent on using cloning technology to secure more power for himself. Mm-hmm. That is entirely up in the air if he's referring to Palpatine or Gideon to me.
Yes.
But I would think Gideon, since, since he was directly working for Gideon, his capture was, from taking him from Gideon, associated with the capture of Gideon. When I read it again, it seems like we, the audience, have the knowledge that that's a great description of Palpatine, especially if you're watching Bad Batch.
Sure.
But in terms of making a public statement to the galaxy, that seems much more like he's talking about Gideon.
I'm with you. I was, like 2% the client, 90% Gideon. Yeah. I think you can essentially left blank, so to speak, so that even those in the crowd might think Palpatine. I'm totally fine with that, but I'm with you on that there.
Yeah, fascinating stuff. Let's get into Coruscant and enjoy it far more than Pershing did.
Yeah.
We got the Galaxy's Opera House, of course. I was just that was a great moment when that opening with Din and Bo-Katan was so thrilling.
Mm-hmm.
And then Mandalorian comes up, the convert. Ooh, where are we going? This is the credits are going to come back, and it's going to be them landing right outside the Mandalorian cave. Like, nope, Coruscant, Galaxy's Opera House. Did you just get nerd thrills at the initial sites?
Yeah, nerd thrills, nerd chills, all of it there. It was just kind of fun, a little bit of a tip of the cap to you prequel generation kids that kept the flame and loved the Star Wars burning strong during those years when a lot of us were trying to tear it apart. These cool locations, it even had, it just, once they went inside to the stairwell, it looked as though they were like, make it as close to the blue screen of Revenge of the Sith as possible.
Yep. Make sure you remove Baron Papanoida, because we want to decide what happens to him in canon. Yeah. Another great thing, we'll talk about all the Coruscant stuff, but kind of wanted to pull some of the bigger stuff. Umate Mountain in Monument Plaza existed in Legends, I believe, featured in the Darth Plagueis novel, but really has a huge moment in modern canon in the High Republic kickoff novel, The Light of the Jedi, where we learn that the Chancellor Lina So likes to go there and connect with it. I probably read about it in Darth Plagueis, but didn't remember because that Light of the Jedi moment was one of our favorites. We talked about it a bunch when we reviewed it. Extremely powerful. How did you feel about seeing this part of Coruscant that has been in various versions of canon for a long time and seeing it on screen and interpreting its meaning in this story? How'd you feel about all that?
I absolutely loved it, and to take to present the name and make sure it's cemented in canon for those who may have missed it before. Which I think Light of the Jedi might have been it, and then just the Monument Park, like you said, going back a ways to Legends. I think it's great. And all the Coruscant stuff was wonderful. We can talk about the vibes, the connections, the similar feel to Andor at times. Totally. Whether super intentional, I don't think they were all in the same room creating the sets and all that kind of stuff, but a lot of the same people might be working on it, so I can see the connections. All that was great, but particularly that one. It was just fun to see it fully realized. I think we've seen it, Clone Wars now, right? Or maybe Bad Batch? Where do we see it?
Monument Plaza?
Yeah, we saw it somewhere else recently, I thought.
I'm not sure if we've seen Monument Plaza on screen. I will Google as we chat.
Google as we ramble. But just I really enjoyed this, and to make it such a dare I say touristy location, the heart of this planet where things kind of seem normal, and at this point, this plaza, but also the deep meaning behind it, and him wanting to connect. It was a fun scene. Everything in Coruscant was great for me, and I love that it was Coruscant. It wasn't Hazian Prime like a lot of people thought, and I could understand why. But it was Coruscant, and love spending my day there.
Yeah, absolutely. It does look like it's listed as having appeared in Forces of Destiny, the Padawan Path, and in the Clone Wars episode Duchess of Mandalore. Okay. So Monument Plaza apparently has been on screen, but certainly the mountain and highlighting the mountain.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it's just, you go back to the whole history of Coruscant from reading about it in books. I've told the story many times of one of my first interactions with somebody who's now been a friend for decades was correcting me on the pronunciation of Coruscant in a comedy sketch. A beloved story, a beloved friend. Then to seeing it and having the jokes about, Mr. Exposition of Rick Ollier going, the whole planet's one big city. To see a little bit more of this emotional side of, there is a connection to nature, but there's a connection to technology, and there's this relationship between them, and what does it represent, and the power of seeing this public square that honestly to me, like, it was like a carnival. It was like Disneyland Main Street. It looked really pleasant and wonderful, and Pershing couldn't enjoy it because of everything going on with him.
Yeah.
But it looked beautiful, and it looked like this weird bittersweet of like, remember underneath this all, there was something organic once.
Yeah.
How does that make you feel?
Yeah.
I think I'm a city person, but I'm so grateful I live within walking distance of Griffith Park because I still want to be connected to nature, and imagine if all the nature in the world was like, it's this one thing you can look at but not touch.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I thought it was just great, man. That first shot, because I'm pumping my fist, yelling Star Wars at the opening sequence, and then we go to Galaxy's Opera House. I just went, oh, here we go. I did not know what was coming. Did not know it was a Radiohead song coming, but I just so excited. It was a great moment as a Star Wars nerd.
Yeah. Speaking of songs, great transition. There is this light background, Disneyland Main Street kind of song you'd hear on riding a horsey on an actual carousel. But it is the March of the Resistance from the sequel trilogy.
Yes, it is.
So how this has now happened several times in Star Wars, where there's been this game of non-diegetic, diegetic. The music we hear is the Imperial March that tells us, the audience, that this fist of tyranny is coming down. In a different key is their propaganda recruitment song. So we even talked in the first episode of this season of Mandalorian, there's some diegetic versus non-diegetic games where we hear a sound and assume it's the soundtrack, and then realize no, that there is actually a Renfest band in the courtyard of Navarro City.
Yeah.
Where are you at with that? How did you feel about it? What meaning do you assign to it? Where'd you go?
I'll be honest. I didn't go too deep in the meaning because I was just excited to hear it. Because I think the first viewing I went like, did I? Second viewing I made sure to clue in, and I just love that. That's actually one of my favorite pieces of Star Wars music. I find myself humming that one a lot more than I even know myself. So I love it. I also love that it kind of can connect to what's coming and maybe what's the vibe of the New Republic. And even though the New Republic and Resistance are maybe at odds at times, this we know how it goes on. I don't know. It just spoke to me a little bit about the spirit of the government in the world at this time.
Yeah, I like that. I like that idea of like, this is our spirit. You know, we'll keep marching forward toward progress. It's the music to me almost kind of like stumbles and then re-advances. Like that. That's what I love about it. Of like, the odds are against us, but we are pushing forward. And I like that would be sort of a musical ethos of the New Republic. But it falters, you know, and it does take the Resistance to kind of take up that banner. I also feel like the same way this episode was not just a story about Pershing, it's not just there for plot mechanics. It's to make this statement of we're tackling this whole era. So to have something explicitly from the sequel trilogy is saying like, we're not. I'm not on board with it. They're going to fix the sequel trilogy, right? But it's more like the Clone Wars animated series. I don't think the point of the Clone Wars animated series from George Lucas was to fix the prequels, but by building out lots of backstory, it enhances the prequels for lots of people.
Yeah.
And I think that there's a little bit of a statement of like, yep, some of the storytelling we're doing here might enhance the sequel trilogy for you. It might answer some questions. I'm not on board again with the fix. But that said, it feels like another planting the flag moment.
I love it that way, and it's easy to devolve into it being a battle, and those who hate it, those who love it. Yeah, it's Star Wars, man, and all that's part of it. It's all this giant, wonderful tapestry, and the creator should be allowed to draw upon it, and hopefully it has that effect that you're saying. You know, like I said, my prequel journey includes me humming along to Padme's ruminations when I thought I hated it. You know what I mean? And that's just the magic of Star Wars if you let it in. I think I even experienced it in this episode with Dr. what I'm calling Dr. Babyfish Mouth, a When Harry Met Sally reference. I went from what are you mudscuffers doing to this morning I was feeding my dogs talking in his voice. Like it just, sometimes you spend some stuff where you hear it hits you, and it doesn't have to be a big correction and everything. Just exactly what you're saying. It just adds to the tapestry, and you get to appreciate it more.
I agree with you, and yeah, there's a lot of morality to be discussed there. But I was like, man, when I'm done recording, I want to be attached to a machine that'll let me see some pleasant colors. So there's a lot of other just kind of checklist stuff that's really great. It seems, I know Favreau has talked about, we want to make we want to have something for all Star Wars fans, so everyone feels welcome. And I think there's a real effort to fill the beats with things from lots of different places. But there was just that taxi droid was basically turning around and going, "Have you read Legends?"
Yeah.
Sky Dome Botanical Gardens was introduced in the Kevin J. Anderson novel Jedi Search. The Mises blossoms at the gardens are a Kashyyyk plant from the video game Star Wars Galaxies. The Galactic Museum is from Legends and modern canon comics. The Holographic Museum of Extinct Animals is also from a Kevin J. Anderson book, Dark Apprentice. So it was just you didn't need to know any of that to know that, hey, Coruscant's a big, vibrant, interesting place, and for some reason Pershing can't enjoy any of it. That's the point. But if you want to nerd out, you get to nerd out and be welcomed. How do you feel about that?
How do I feel about it? I loved it all. I love this world. I love that I can draw upon it. It's a tip of the cap to Legends fans, tip of the cap to canon fan like me. It's just all fun. It's what I'd want, and I think sometimes Star Wars takes it on the chin of another reference. Trivia is associated so much with Star Wars, even more than I think other properties, and it should. It's this wonderful playground. Play with it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that was a part of the joy and the fun of Coruscant, was diving deep into the culture and day-to-day life. And I think that is the part that is similar to Andor, of like, Star Wars is sometimes mythic and sometimes, to sort of paraphrase Everything Everywhere All at Once, sometimes life is beautiful when it's about taxes and laundry. Speaking of which, another thing that was here is Days of the Week, which is a thing from reference books. Maybe it's other places in Legends, but the kind but frustrated office space boss in Pershing's data pits it says Happy Bendu Day. Bendu Day is basically Friday. Bendu obviously has some connotations in Star Wars. The joke on the train of Tongs Days, am I right? Tongs Days is basically Wednesday. Did this stuff land for you, or did that not sit well with you of the space days of the week?
Oh, I don't know. It didn't. I've been answering a lot of surveys lately. It neither affected me positively or negatively. It was just fun. It builds it out there. I enjoyed the Tongs Day joke and beat was great. I thought that was wonderful. So no, I had no problem. I was gonna I misread or misheard the first one when I saw it. I thought he was talking about the bins. Like, it's bin day. Like, you got a bunch of bins to go through. I was like, oh, that's depressing.
Yeah.
Bin days.
Yeah. That's funny. So then lots of other things that are building on the story, the lore, there is early versions of the amnesty program trying to build it in the trilogy of books Alphabet Squadron. The controversial decision to decommission the Alliance fleet is discussed in, I believe, Bloodline. I believe they're already talking about it in Princess and the Scoundrel, I believe. But it's all over the publishing, right?
Yeah.
Even the connection to the direct connection to Andor, where Cyril Karn gets this kind of soul crushing job in these data pits, right? That there was a power that, like, okay, well, that needs to be done. There's a massive galaxy to figure everything out. But it really did look like they put some plants in that office. But other than that, it was still a soul crushing data pit. How did you feel about that?
That absolutely works. As someone who refuses to go into offices again or meet in person, Cyril Karn. That's the only time I felt connected with Cyril Karn and Dr. Pershing here. It just works for that big city Coruscant vibe.
Yeah, absolutely, and more connections and more. The New Republic's trying. Last thing I really wrote down is that New Republic police ship that catches Pershing did look a lot like an Imperial gunship in the shadowy shots that I saw. Did you feel that? Did you like that?
Yeah, I did too. Yeah. No, I caught that vibe. It almost had a little bit of the Canto bite thing, but it's clearly more covered and everything. But like that. Absolutely.
Yeah, in the police uniforms, they have a language with the Republic or the Rebellion troopers, with the Canto Bight police, even with the Cloud Car pilots. Of like, this is a little bit of what authority dresses like in the galaxy,
and it's horrible. I have a note. I'm going to have to talk about it now. I have a note in it, like anything else we want to touch upon it. Like the New Republic has got to get a better designer. White boots, the blue. I used to get in this fight with my superiors in my old job when they're trying to dress public safety officers. Do not put anything on them that looks like a dumb character in a movie. Like, what are you doing? God, we used to have these beautiful gray over black uniforms. Like, oh my God, this green gray, and they replaced it with that cyan baby powder blue. And I'm like, you can't do that. You're setting us up for failure here. We walk around looking like jokes from a Kevin Smith movie. Stop it. And everyone from Bender Bendu guy to the coppers, and like, you all dress horrible. But this is not a nitpick of the show. This is an in-world thing where I'm like, someone needs to, unfortunately, maybe take some notes from Palpatine. Like, just, you gotta go better than this. And he got the dumb hats. Oh, it's so funny. I love it. Like I said, this is all done with spirit.
Yeah, it feels to me like yet another high-level New Republic compromise of somebody's like, we need all of these systems. We can't be so loosey-goosey. We need data entry workers. We need cops. We need security on trains. We can have as many droids as we can afford, but we need that. And somebody's like, it's so militant. Can they at least wear a pleasing blue?
It's just,
Can they at least have a light, gentle color? Can they be like dressed like what if the sky was made of candy? They'll be dressed like that.
Yeah.
A good compromise. I lied. I had one other canon thing because it cracked me up of what Din is super knowledgeable about in the galaxy. I love that he was such a Star Wars nerd when he was fighting those TIE interceptors, and like interceptors are a lot tougher than TIE fighters. And like Din apparently has played Rogue Squadron. He hasn't watched Clone Wars, but he's played Rogue Squadron.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, love that. Yeah, I just love the TIE interceptors being there. As a Return of the Jedi fan, yeah, I just love any time. And I just him. There's too many of them. We got the shot. It was a great little moment too.
Interceptors, bombers, fighting a gauntlet fighter, which was always one of my favorite animated ships in an N1. Oh, come on. That was amazing. That was, that was Paradise City. And then we segued to Patience. Anyway, let's talk action. You ready for some action?
Yes, absolutely.
What were some of your favorite moments? Obviously, there's a big explosion of action at the beginning, and then a little lighter on the action as we went into this sort of indie drama of Pershing.
I focused on the beginning for sure. I'll start with this: how fast Din got into the N1 cockpit with that armor. How tiny that cockpit is. That's one of the most impressive action feats I've ever seen. He just slides in. I can't even get into this recording chair without knocking something over. So that's where I'll start with the action.
That was pretty great. I think everything about Din getting into the N1, I just loved. Bo-Katan saying, "I'm not going to be able to slow down," and be like, "I can do it." The dropout, the buzzing by the ties, the landing on the platform, but having that forward skid. Oh man, that was just some great chef's kiss Star Wars action. I loved it.
Yeah, no, the great shot of Din as he bolts from the castle and everything you're saying is right on there. The N1's engines off, fall, every little detail. It was one of the best sequences and looks good. And this is where the technology has definitely improved. You and I talked about it. I had some issues with how some of the ships looked in season 1. Issues meaning like, I know they're getting there, but it was that's the point. They're getting there. Season 1 was the beginning. It's like going back to season 1 of Clone Wars and going, it looks like the Dire Straits video, Money for Nothing, but now it's a beautiful piece of art. So I love the journey there.
I really, really want the voice actors of the Clone Wars to do a cover of Money for Nothing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
And what for free, Anakin? Come on.
Yeah.
The N1 climbing into that beautiful blue-white sky, into a sky that looked like New Republic police.
Yes.
The N1 climbing and falling, God, it was beautiful. In Bo-Katan's amazing gauntlet wing turn. I've lost. Anyway, I was going to say a thing, but I can't remember what part of Bad Batch has come out, so I'm not going to say anything. But the killing the engine and it looked like killing the gravity, and then using actual air pressure by flipping up the one gauntlet wing. I didn't even know that the wings could move independently. That move was so cool. And then R5D4 just agony throughout the entire action sequence and floating. Oh, beauty.
I that was the moment where I, not loudly, but I literally mumbled the word Star Wars with an exclamation point, as if I just finished some cartwheel and went, yeah, on that moment.
Yeah, it was just great, classic. There's character stuff in it, but it's just classic, whiz-bang space adventure. Makes me want to get in a car and drive fast,
Yeah. Not in
which I didn't do. I drove very slowly and very carefully for 2 hours.
Yeah, we'll get you playing like Gran Turismo on the PlayStation there.
Sounds good. There definitely was some tension moments, some action moments in Pershing's drama. The one that really cracked me up is, Pershing making this kind of exhilarating but also fearful decision to leap over this chasm of this moving train. That security droid just hitting a button and extending the connection between the trains. That I thought that was great.
Yeah, those droids, man. They didn't. didn't do their job. I was disappointed in them.
This is a traumatic episode for somebody who has a lot of experience in security like you do.
Yeah. But yeah, anyways, I'm joking. I loved it. I love there's even just the action of the subway ride, getting on the tube there, the movement when it ride and they're both shaking in their seats when it starts. I thought it was a great little detail.
Absolutely great. Yeah. Did you have any other action moments before we move on to comedy and whimsy?
No, really. Like I said, you hit on the big one I wanted to talk about was Bo-Katan's one-wing flip-a-doo, and you did, and there we go.
Star Wars. Let's talk about comedy and whimsy. I wrote down a surprising amount because there's a lot of good dark humor in this to me. So what do you got?
Some of the beats we talked about, Tonsday really worked for me. Whimsy, Grogu holding his hand on Din, post water is just kind of cute. This is where I was going to initially talk about New Republic outfits, but we got to that there. I'll start. I probably didn't write down as much as you, but I put it on unintentional comedy because it's a kind of deep moment. But when the episode starts, we're sitting there, and then Din coughs himself awake and goes, "I am redeemed." It was so funny to me. It was not like I want to be like, really? Do you how do you know? Like, what do you? It was totally unintentional comedy wise, and I kept even on second view, and I was like, nope, I do find that funny. I'm holding to that.
He did bathe really deeply.
He did, yeah.
I think there's some comedy to that. I'm glad that they clarified that that the bombings from the Purge probably opened that up. One of our listeners responded to our episode last week saying, "Hey, I bet there's a possibility that the Empire's bombing did that." So kudos to that listener who was spot on. But there's still comedy in it, that he's so reverent at the end of Minds of Mandalore, and he's saying the words, and it's a depth moment, but it is a little bit of comedy, right? It's really got the comedy of not to be cruel, but like somebody tripping when they're walking up the steps for their wedding, or like you're in this regal important moment, and then humanity strikes.
Yeah.
And I think it's to me, it's the same comedy of that, of like, it's like it's like watching somebody trip and fall and bang their head and say every made up Star Wars swear word, and then standing up and going, "I did it."
Yeah. That's amazing. It's amazing. I want to talk about. I actually want to go back. We talked a lot last week about the symbolism of Din walking into the water, not really understanding the lay of the land, and goes underneath. You need Bo-Katan there to say all those kind of the big thematic stuff. And then I love the answer. I think it's a great answer. I saw some clips this week of people mocking that moment. Din fallen, maybe think it's the Beskar. And I just like the truth of what it was. What you and I were talking about, discussing thematically, but just like, yeah, he fell. He didn't know that wasn't supposed to be there. And it wasn't his mistake. It wasn't the Beskar being heavy. I just like that moment. I loved the clarification of it.
Yeah, I love the clarification. I think it makes a lot of sense. And I don't think it changes my practical analysis of my practical question. Like, it didn't seem like Din knew. It didn't seem like Din was like, haha, he's going to fall, right? So it does make a lot of sense to me, but it does still feel like it's an image of what Din is wrestling with. Of he is so certain on his path and he is marching forward so quickly. What happens when you're so sure of your path and marching forward so reverently? And then he's just like, I didn't know it was that deep. Like, you also don't know the Children of the Watch are that deep. I don't quite think,
Yeah, correct. Yes.
Yeah. So for comedy moments, I thought it was a deeply meaningful moment. It was certainly deeply meaningful between Din and Bo, when Bo was like, I'd invite you over for a feast, but you're not going to take that off. And he's like, this is the way. And she kind of begrudgingly says, this is the way back. And then Grogu babbles in a slightly rhythmic way. And it really feels to me like Grogu understands everything that's going on around him. And wants to join in, but doesn't have the verbal skills yet. And the reason that I really think that, and the reason I wrote it down for comedy and whimsy, is Din and Bo do absolute comedy looks at him. They both turn and look at him, and then turn and look at each other. And if they hadn't been attacked by TIE interceptors, the next beat was going to be, did the kid just say this is the way? Like, they were about to have that conversation.
It really was. We're getting dangerously close. We got Pelimoto just straight up asking, is he spoken yet? Is he spoken yet? So yeah, absolutely. We're getting there.
Yeah. Oh man, we're gonna have to get back into the great discussion of the first word.
Yeah.
We talked about the line, but the absolute just garbage rich person mood of the aristocrat going,
Yeah.
I was almost drafted. Imagine me serving. We've never met, but let me make this all about me and what is obvious about me.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I also liked it made the point of Pershing being uncomfortable with Coruscant in every way, but I love the taxi droid looking the wrong way.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. It was a droid. Yeah, it was a droid on a beat. But yes, no, I love that droid. That droid was yeah.
Great stuff. Other comedy beats for you?
Not a lot. I gotta tell you, no, I didn't laugh as much. Did not laugh as much. I wrote a lot of Grogu. The Bo, when they get to the cave, there's a lot of great Bo and Grogu comedy. When they get to, she kind of looks at the cave, then Grogu, and he looks at her. I'm almost kind of like, yeah, I don't know either.
Yeah, we'll see how this is going to go. Yeah. I really, really loved. It was another point of sort of mechanization. I loved the mountain protection droid.
Mm-hmm.
It was great to have. Pershing Want to Feel Alive. It was great to have that moment of connection and manipulation from Kane. But as somebody who has worked in a museum, my wife has worked in many historical spaces where you do have to be careful about how you handle them. Like you really kind of can't have everybody touch it or everybody try to chip a part of it off for their own, keepsake. To have that automated. Like there are times in my life where everyone around me would be like, "Oh, I would pay $1 million for a droid that could swoop in when that kid is about to smash that thing in the museum and say, please refrain from physical contact with you mate, and then picking up the littering too, and don't let her."
Yeah. Love it.
Yeah. And the technician cracked me up. The Mon Cala technician. What was your name for him?
Dr. Baby Fishmouth in the end is the name I've decided. Here's the journey. I don't know how much I enjoy that they, this goes even to Book of Boba Fett. You got some great scenes around a table, and you got a mask that it's struggling to maybe work for me, and I don't want it CGI. I don't want anything. I like the choice to do it. I like the creatures. I felt the lack of aliens in Andor, other than when they showed Dewey, Freedy, and everything. So I want to be clear about that. I just think initially the one at the Opera House was great, and then you got a pretty potentially serious scene. And his torture mask comes out, and then it's like, well, how do you feel about this? And it just, so my initial, it's again, they talk about the gear shift or the song changes. I'm like, whoa. And then he can't even move his hands because he's got this outfit on. So that's my starting point. If it was 2015, I'd end there. But I like that it's Star Wars. I like that it's weird. I like that it's pulpy. All those things we talk about. And then you just kind of, it's like me. I just did the short on the puffer. I used to hate the puffer pigs. Then I get a toy and I squeeze it and it makes me laugh. It's almost like I've squeezed this character already. It felt right on not just second viewing, but the more I thought about it. I just think sometimes I have, it's easier to poke at it when you got pirates and you can tell it's a latex mask or something like that. And it sounds like I'm criticizing the design or anything. I'm not. I think it's beautiful stuff. It occasionally rubs me a little bit the wrong way, where I'm like, the mouth's not even moving. Like, it's just like, what are we doing? But it's Star Wars, man. And I am here for that weirdness. I'm here for the awkwardness. And it ends up being a great moment. It ends up being effective for me. So I just want to be honest about that. It's a journey I go on. And, and sometimes I think it's important to keep working through it.
Yeah, no, I butt up against it every once in a while when it is the some of the weird, wild, whimsical part of Star Wars butting up against something dead serious. But I also just love that Star Wars is committed of like, we decided Rhodian fingers are absolutely not practical. Weird floppy things that are too long, and they always will be. And then I cracked up so much in this really horrific scene. The mouth movement didn't bother me at all. I thought his mask movement matched just fine, but it was the lack of practicality with his hands. At one point, he's holding both his hands out away from him, like he's got Cheetos fingers and can't touch his phone, right?
Yes.
And that cracked me up. But his general attitude, right?
Mm.
Going along with that good intentions theme, I think that he believed that this awful device, that he had taken something awful, changed it, rebirthed it, given it new life, and it was truly helping people who couldn't get past the trauma of being in the Empire, who wanted to change, but they were too indoctrinated and couldn't. And his pride when he says, "You'll see some pleasant colors, hear a light buzzing, and experience a great sense of relief in no time at all." Like that dopey voice, like almost like, is this what Akbar sounded like during puberty? Voice.
Yeah.
To me, it really supported that. We, the audience, can see that this is maybe a failing, that they didn't burn every one of these machines.
Yeah.
But this technician believes in it.
Oh, totally. Baby fish mouth is right there for the truth.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's it for comedy and whimsy. This is a supersized episode to match a longer episode of The Mandalorian. But is there anything that we haven't talked about that you wanted to talk about?
No, I ranted about outfits. I ranted about fish mouths. I sound like I'm a grumpy Star Wars fan. I'm not. I really love everything in it. This is a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think the final thing for me that I want to be sure to touch on is the plot. You and I get really invested in discussing the ideas in the world building and the themes, because I think an episode like this, that is the point. And the reason that I wanted to bring up the plot is on a mechanical level, huge forward plot movement in a short amount of time with Din and Bo, right? Her home is destroyed. He is redeemed. She joins, at least for now, the Children of the Watch. Huge, major plot movement. This entire long indie drama with Pershing, in terms of plot mechanics, we learned that Kane, working for somebody, needed Pershing's knowledge to get the right equipment to continue the cloning technology, cloning experiments without him.
Yeah.
In terms of plot, that's it, right?
Yeah.
Which I can see people having a criticism of, but I wanted to bring up to say, hey, we see the plot. We know, why the gears are moving, but the fact that the episode spends so much time to get to this, it's not in a breakneck speed. That could, if that was all that mattered, that could have been a 5-minute scene, right?
Yeah.
Which says that what matters to the creators is everything we're talking about, is questioning the New Republic, is going on a deep dive of Pershing's soul, and seeing what happens when you want to change, but a part of you doesn't want to, and you lie to yourself, and you're open to manipulation. Like, all these ideas that we're talking about are clearly the point. Yeah. Because if the point was just a plot, it didn't need to be that long. And again, I can see some people saying, yep, and that's why I didn't like it, and fair enough. But I'm just making the argument for an engage with what you're presented with.
Yeah, absolutely. No,
I felt the jerk of being pulled away from the Star Wars to the indie drama that is more about themes and world building. But I also really enjoyed the themes and world building because it was, to me, the point.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, I'm with you on that. Again, making the reference to the song change and everything. I think there's some choices that this show continues to make that I'm proud they make them and they know what they want to do. It doesn't mean every beat is for me. And in this episode, I don't know. This episode is one that we'll see how much I revisit it. But also this, I think this episode is going to matter a lot more.
It really strikes me.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
The season's going to end, and you're going to look back at this one and go, oh, yeah. So that's why I like it or not. It is what it is. And again, a lot of that's when you and I talk about engaging with what's presented, but a lot of that is battling our own expectations that pop up when you least expect it. And sitting down at 11:50 to get ready for an epic episode of Mando, that means something in my mind. And when it's different, it's going to present a challenge, and you got to just work through that.
Yeah, and I think for myself, I'm going to be like, this is the Mandoverse. It is going to take left turns on you, and I'm going to try to engage with that as much as I like engaging with the themes, and be ready for this is what I want to happen. This is the shot from the trailer that I'm excited for. When's it coming? There's nothing wrong with that, but also being willing to be like, but you might get a surprise. We might get an entire Pelimoto episode, and I will engage with that. and see what's there. Because I so agree with you. My first interaction was like, this emotionally, this is kind of a hard episode, right?
Yeah.
There are funny moments, but it's kind of hellish what Pershing is going through and what happens to him, you know. But so I had to like, how much am I going to enjoy rewatching this one?
Yeah.
But I so agree with you. They are planting seeds, and it's going to be fun to come back and go, hey, this is where that idea started. This is where that idea started.
Yeah. Yeah. You could trace a lot of things back.
Yeah. Any predictions or hopes for next week after talking about managing our expectations? Let's have some expectations.
No, man. Moff Gideon emerges with a blueprints for Palpatine 2.0 and Jor's both there. And Talon cards driving a ship. Yeah, it's all there. It's all in play. It's all in play.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm still really interested in seeing how the Mandalorian story is going to grow. If the Gorian Shard pirates attack Navarro City and Din gets to tell Mandalorians what to do because he has the Darksaber, I'm very intrigued by. I'm intrigued by Grogu, the how and why of Grogu perhaps confronting his Order 66 memories. I'm curious whether the Pershing is dead or just having this part of his memory erased so he doesn't know what he did, or that he was manipulated, if this is death or just erasure. And then big picture thing for me and final thing is I do like the amount of work that this episode did to set Moff Gideon up as the ongoing threat. And it does feel to me like maybe the season is building to Gideon versus the Children of the Watch, Gideon wanting to wipe Mandalorians out once and for all. And all these Mandalorians who are so wounded, so traumatized by not being strong enough to stop him before, needing to stop him to prove that Mandalore can be whole again.
Yes. My vote for Gideon is the bad, not anyone in a test tube.
Yeah, exactly. All right. We try to wrap up with a fun question. What action figure or merch would you like inspired by this episode?
I definitely want Imperial travel cakes. That seems like something that's right up my alley. Someone who eats gas station sandwich food, and people think I'm joking, but really I actually sometimes go seek it out. Yes, give me the horrible kind of bland tasting things that you love. I'm there for it.
Yeah, give me the travel biscuits. There's been some times in my life I relate to that where like, hey, I could have this fancy meal or I could have a Tombstone pepperoni frozen pizza at 2 a.m. Not technically is good, but it's my comfort food. And I love the travel biscuit stuff.
Yes.
Ken, I'm sorry to do this to you. The other merch I want is a collection, a multi-pack of the friendly faces of the New Republic.
Okay, yeah, I'll take that.
All in blue and white. I want the boss guy, the middle management guy in the data pit. There's a Rodian cop in the background.
There is.
Kind of short Rodian. I want that. New Republic cop in blue and white. I definitely need the Mon Calamari technician. Absolutely need a multi-pack of them all.
Yeah. Love that. Yeah.
All right. Very big episode. Thank you, everyone who is excited to dive deep. We fell almost to the bottom of the living waters, and we're going to need to be rescued by Bo-Katan. Ken, where can people find us?
Hey, thanks for listening, everybody. I know we went long, but also this is what we do. So we're glad to have you here for the deep dives. We're on Twitter at Force Center Pod, Instagram, and Facebook as well as Force Center Podcast. You can also find us on YouTube. Hey, subscribe over there for more live streams, Q&As. We got shorts, essays, all those things over there, and rebroadcast of the podcast there. And you can get merch at tpublic.com/user/Force Center. Don't forget, you can also find the podcast in a lot of different spots, including Google Podcasts, TuneIn, Stitcher, all the ones I don't say a lot. They're there as well. And you can support us directly at patreon.com/Ken Napzok. You can also follow me at Ken Napzok or go to my website, kennapzok.com. Got things like The Blathering, a podcast I do. We also have Pop Rocket Radio. If you want to hear me do those song transitions, which sometimes I have to get a little grumpy with my live requests. I'll be doing some rock and someone's like, hey, can you play a ballad? It doesn't work that way. You got to figure it out. So there you go. Get the mood. Follow over there. Joseph, where can they follow you?
You can find me sleeping. I have a fun role-playing game I'm doing some with friends, and then I'm going to sleep. But before I go to sleep, I will tweet about it. So you can find me on all the social media at Joseph Scrimshaw, Twitter, Mastodon, Instagram in particular. If you want to check out some comedy bits and some short films, you can go to my YouTube channel, Joseph Scrimshaw. And of course, if you're interested and want to check it out, go see patreon.com/4center and see if that is for you. But for now, for myself, for Ken, for blue and white outfits across the galaxy, this has been the Mandalorian Report.
Force